Carol, roll. Please, ma'am.
Vice Mayor Dick G.
Here.
Councilmember Dan Landrum.
Here.
Councilmember Robert Spaulding is absent. Councilmember Amy Speak. Here. Mayor Chris Howard.
Here. Just to give everybody an update, the meeting today, our normal meeting time is usually 12:30, and we caught at the last minute that I think it was copied and pasted from our November meeting because we didn't have a December meeting, and that's why it was posted for 12 today. So we scrambled, and Dr. Spaulding is the only one we didn't contact, so we're expecting him to be here by 12:30 today.
I did speak with him.
Oh, you did? Okay. Moving forward, we'll go right into the, I'm sorry, do we want to do the Timberlinks before the resolution? Okay. We're going to, without any objection, move the schedule around just a little bit because we have some folks that need to get out of here. But we're going to talk about the Timberlinks playground first. And we'll probably move item 6B, SSVC, down to the bottom of that list. So we're going to go with discussions on the Timberlink playground and then into resolutions. Did you want to come up?
Good job.
I think Bo has a printout coming for you as well.
Okay. Also, while we're waiting, our town manager celebrated a birthday 2 days ago. And
132.
132. That's what it feels like. And has a brand new grandbaby, boy Cooper. Cooper boy. Well, a boy Cooper. Cooper Boyd, a boy. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. That's a joyous thing. And mother and baby are happy and healthy. All right. This is us.
I'm sorry, Mayor, would you put on the record that...
Oh, yeah. Let it be known that 5 after 12, Dr. Spaulding arrived.
All right. I apologize for the one thing I didn't pick up in the first thing we needed. So, we've had some previous discussion about the replacement of the playground at Timberlinks. We've held off on that project to look and see if there was any better location for it, or if we might be repurposing any of the space for better field use. Talked to Jared about it, and he in turn has spoken with the folks from the playground company, and they really feel that the current location is a good spot. What you have in front of you is a representation of a phased project. If you look at when it has Timberlinks Drive at the top of the page.
Oh, that can't be good.
The part of the playground to the upper right, and then just below that, the swings are what we're talking about in this project. The border and all the site work will be done, and then those apparatus will be put in. To the left side of the page and down at the bottom are what we would like to try to do in coming phases. So just wanted to bring this up as we're quickly approaching spring and fall season and all, kind of get this back on the table for discussion, see if we could consider moving forward with this project and get direction from council in that regard.
Is this budgeted already?
We have $30,000 in the budget for this part of it, and we believe that, again, getting the initial site work, what is within the boundary prepared, the boundary will be installed, and then the large piece of apparatus in the upper right, and then the swings will go in all in this phase of the project.
Again, where is Timberlinks?
Timberlinks is Down here where, at the top, if you turn it, the writing down there,
Like that.
this is Timberlinks.
Oh, I see, yeah. Right there.
It's kind of a, you don't see it from this, but it's the point where, Short Creek comes out to Timberlinks.
So the boundary is the same.
Yeah, it's within the same area that it's been before.
But
That area's been cleared. We talked to them about the existing trees and what we were gonna put in and where. And the types of trees that were there, they recommended some of them be removed because of root systems and also, just limbs falling, into the play area. So that's all been done and the site's pretty much prepared that we can move forward.
Is the outline, are you actually going to put something there?
If there's
Is
a
it
border.
those border around the,
Right.
okay.
It's like a little log timber.
Is there any chance to get additional bench seating? Is there any area for that?
Sure, offset over here, where you see the picnic tables,
Right.
we've got quite a bit of.
You got a
area.
room? Okay. I just, if, parents take their kids there.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, it's not gonna take up that whole point. It'll be considerably larger than the old playground, but there's still plenty of room for where we can put picnic tables and seating.
Have you priced this? Is it, what's it cost? We have 30,000 in the budget. What's
30,000,
it?
I think.
The playground itself.
It should cover the first phase of it.
Yeah, this whole playground itself is about $70,000. Well, take more than that, but with the discounts that we got for the play at home and all that, it's about a $70,000 playground right here.
Everything soup to
So
nuts?
what's the first phase? First phase will be this 5 to 12, and then that swing set, and then that will include all the border being put in and all the mulch.
So the old playground didn't have swings, right?
No,
I don't remember, but we're putting swings.
it had one. There was just a single swing there. A single swing, a slide. It had several things. A lot of it had been broken over the years, and it was just
Rusted.
extremely
Only
dangerous.
reason I bring it up is at my church, with the preschool, swings became somewhat of a liability.
They zone it in certain areas.
Because of
If you notice where they put it,
the nature of what they are,
Yeah.
they're dangerous.
You got the 5 to 12 area, 5-year-old to 12-year-old kid.
Yeah.
By it, you'll have that's why they offset it up here on the upper part.
So-
That's it. And then
okay.
and then
So they're only
way
in that
below
for
is the 2 to 5. That they can put it as far away as they can.
we started a preschool at our church over there. We ran into the same thing. We had to have the state come over to review the playground.
Our folks just decided that the view wasn't worth the climb. And bailed on the whole concept of swings and sliding boards and the whole thing.
And then you'll see again that it's over to the side, so the swings don't lie between point A and point B.
They have to, yeah.
They're off to the
When
side.
they lay it all out, you have a fall zone, a landing zone, what they call it, and there's a certain X amount of feet that you have to have when the companies put these in.
Fair enough. So tell me again,
All the border will be
border
installed.
and this piece?
This big piece up here,
Yeah.
and that swing.
And the
that,
swing.
And then all the mulch to bring it, obviously have that. And then the second phase, if we do it, will be all this stuff down here.
So but that covers 30,000 or?
Correct.
And then the 40,000 is the last two pieces? That doesn't sound.
The 40,000, the 2 to 5, the uneven bars, whatever they call this, the space loop, the tilted seat, little merry-go-round,
Right.
and the picnic table. That'll be the second phase.
Okay.
There's a lot of prep.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm saying. That's why I thought the front end would be more expensive. You had a question?
Yeah,
Go
just,
ahead.
someone asked a question, and the answer was encouraging at the planning commission about shade, that this, go ahead and say what you
Sure.
said. yeah.
Well, one of the things that we were talking, obviously, we'll come back through and we'll plant some trees that are appropriate around, kind of like we did at Old House Park, some shade trees that will mature over the next several years. But you can see might not be seeing your,
Yeah.
the grayer shaded
Yeah,
area,
sure.
that's all built-in canopy that's included with the system that we'll be installing. And it's a shade canopy that goes over the units themselves.
So what do you do?
Well,
You suggest we
as long
do
as
this?
direction from the council that we can move forward with this project, as we.
I'll make a
Has,
motion. Yeah, we discussed
As a
this
rec
at the
board?
rec board
Okay.
meeting. Yeah,
They-
this is great.
they like it?
Yep,
Okay. Motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
And the motion is?
that we accept the proposal to.
First
rebuild.
phase, we proceed
Yeah.
with first phase?
Yes, thank you.
You have a first and second, any other conversation? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
If we get all the documents together, we'll have those to you hopefully at the next regular meeting to actually approve.
Right, so we just
You just approved us.
We just
moving
approved us,
forward.
right, so we can do it at a regular meeting because it has to do with money.
We'll
Okay,
bring the actual purchase to you there.
good, thank you.
Well, and while we have Jared here, Jared, would you mind, we had a great meeting, some exciting stuff as a result of looking at whether or not we were gonna move this playground or keep it the same. Would you mind sharing what you guys found out about that space and what we could do?
Sure. I guess one of the reasons that we put this on hold a couple of years ago is we were looking at consolidating field space, moving a baseball field over here, converting the Wagner Field over here at Timberlinks to a multi-use football lacrosse. Long story short, we paid to have an engineering firm come up, and they checked everything out. If we decided to move forward with it, it is feasible for us to consolidate fields and put a full-size football lacrosse area in over there. That being said, it would fit in that full-size football field would fit, and it wouldn't have anything to do with this. This would be kind of that upper tier back where Short Creek and Timberlinks are. So this, irregardless of what we do, this field would not interfere. This playground wouldn't interfere if we made those changes years down the road.
When that gets done, can we allow the Signal Mountain lacrosse team to actually use that field and play on it? I know Tiffany and a bunch of folks are looking for space.
Yeah, and we
It's
tried
not- It's not a recognized school sport, but it's
Right.
a club sport through the school, and there's a ton of kids.
And we try to accommodate them as best we can right now. They use the middle school field out there at the high school. When spring session starts, I mean, they'll use our outdoor basketball court. There's so many kids. I mean, anywhere they can find a place. And as you know,
But we
it's
can
difficult. It's a difficult facility in terms of
Right.
how much they
Wide,
tear the ground up. But we try to accommodate them. But yeah, absolutely.
Can we?
That would fit inside their field. Would
Excellent.
fit inside those parameters. Yeah.
Good.
Someone who brings their kids just to play there, that hadn't parked at the other end because they have a kid playing a sport or something. Where do they park?
What's gonna happen-
For access to this,
What will happen?
exclusively to this park?
Yeah, we've talked several times. I think the easiest thing is going to be on the Short Creek side where that fence is. Down the path, put a drain tile in there where that ditch is, and we'll have to put, it could be as small as a three-car parking lot with a handicap accessible. We have to have that. That's where the handicap entrance comes into play. That's what we're thinking. Because if we don't, then we would have to run an ADA compliant handicap, a concrete pad all the way back to that far parking lot area, which would
Because the
be.
no parking on Timberlinks extends past, so they can't park there.
Is that in the cost? Have you assumed that parking?
That parking
cost?
is not, a lot of that parking, I think, I've talked to Leslie and several of them down at Town Hall, we think a lot of that we can do in-house.
Okay.
Right.
Can we explore permeable surfaces that are still ADA compliant? I don't even know if that exists. It's just for runoff issues and as we're thinking about new parking lots and things.
We took that tree down, right?
Yeah, we don't have to pay that.
Right.
Right. Thank you. I know you gotta go. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
Great.
Next, resolutions. We have one, resolution 2018-2, a resolution authorizing the fire chief to submit a grant application for the 2017 Federal Emergency Management Agency Assistance to Firefighters Grant in an amount not to exceed $70,000, which will provide funds to purchase 27 sets of personal protective equipment and decontamination/cleaning equipment to properly clean and care for PPE. Do we need, Chief, are you here? Do we need him up here for this?
If you want, basically this is a grant opportunity. Current standards recommend that you have 2 sets of equipment for firefighters, appropriate cleaning materials, to make sure the cartridges are removed from the clothing and all of that. This will provide us to do that. It's a 90% grant.
So we come up with 7?
Yeah, for around 7,000. Any questions?
anybody have any questions?
And this is equipment we don't have today, or equipment that's outdated, and
It's,
we're gonna upgrade.
it will add, what it does is it just adds another set of equipment that everybody already has, and it adds an additional set. The new standard, NFPA standards recommend that everybody has 2 sets, so when you have a fire, you can properly clean the set that you've got.
And have another set ready to go.
And have the other
Something
set ready to go.
In spending some time with our folks in the fire department, I learned that the biggest cause of injury or death to a fireman is overheating.
Heat stress.
And we had talked about the potential for technology coming up to be able to gauge, do heat gauges on body temperature through the suits.
Not there yet.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is there anything we can do still, like Apple Watches or something something that gets body temperature to be able to
Yeah.
track these folks?
Nothing that's really gonna hold up in a fire situation. There's a lot of testing being done. I know the University of Illinois Fire Service Institute just got another $4 million grant for heat stress studies.
Okay.
And they've tried several different things, but there's
Can we
nothing that's been durable yet.
Can we stay on top of it?
Oh, yeah.
Just for the safety of our guys?
Yeah, because that is the number 1 cause. Heat stress is the number 1 killer of firefighters.
Come in.
Painters.
Yeah, no. Stay there after we vote, because I got a question for you after this.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
We got a first and second. Any further conversation, discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Is this also for Pennsylvania?
Yes.
While you're here, so you don't have to wait till the end, I think I've talked to you about, I'd like to make sure that we have a fire or alarm system for our history building over there. Because it's got all our old records, all the old photos, it's got I mean, if that place went up, we'd lose everything. Have you looked into that?
That's one of the things, right now, we're looking at the facilities projects for next year's budget. So that'll be included in next year's budget, or one of the items that I'll bring for next year's budget.
What do you, I mean, it can't be that much, is it?
A few $1,000.
Is it?
Monitoring is gonna be a big thing, that ongoing.
It's on
costs.
monthly monitoring type thing? Okay, all right.
I just wonder if there's something interim that we could do.
No.
Don't light any matches over there?
No.
It's a wood building.
The system now, I think they make approved systems that are, rather than having to have a phone line put in the building, and they do cellular systems.
Do we have some of the more important documents in fireproof containers?
Over here?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Those records aren't the official archives of the town.
Okay.
The town documents are
So they're not being,
archived here. Those are very important historic documents, but the actual town's documents are not out in that building.
okay, thank you.
That's, I know mostly a lot of
I'm
newspaper
sorry.
clippings and things like
If it
that.
were to catch on fire and an alarm, appropriate alarm sounded, should we save that building anytime?
Oh, yes.
I mean, it's all wood and the
If,
contents.
if it has an installed alarm, those are supposed, once it's, say a smoke detector is activated, it transmits the alarm with the new standards from dispatch. The way an alarm used to, or is still transmitted. So you have a smoke detector go off, the alarm company receives the alarm. You have, the standard is you have 30 seconds for the alarm to be transmitted from wherever the fire is to the alarm company. Then there's a process that the alarm company goes through, then they call the appropriate dispatch center, because alarm monitoring centers, I mean, you could be in California, you could be anywhere.
Sounds like it'd be up in smoke by then.
But there's new technology, which the 911 center here has, where the alarm center, once it's identified through software, it automatically sends it to the dispatch center. And it's taking a couple minutes off that time. So, and then, I'm not saying there won't be damage, smoke damage and different things, depending on the size of the fire, but
You're talking about a 5 to 10 minute earlier response
The
time.
only thing I'm trying to save is records.
Right.
I mean, and
I mean, it's the
they're
difference,
irreplaceable, and that's,
Yeah.
it's the difference in a scenario, this week, there was a fire in Walden where church had some things stored, and that was a passerby that saw it. And that was too late for that building,
Didn't have a system.
didn't have a system, so.
Thank you. Any other questions for Chief while he's up here?
let's just
Yeah.
keep that one on the table.
Yeah. If you keep working on that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Next, we're going to have discussions, board appointments. Are those in here, Carol?
Yeah.
Ah, okay, there it is. So we have, Boyd, do you want to take this?
Well, sure. Each of you also have a letter that was provided by a member of DRC who is not requesting to be reappointed. I have that letter, and there's a note that asks that I read it out loud, but that is, let's say, council, you each have a copy of that.
I think we can read it.
Individually, you mean?
Individually.
So before you have a list of the board members that are up for reappointment and indicating which ones do request to be reappointed and which ones have declined. The fact that someone asks to be reappointed isn't necessarily an automatic appointment. It's still something the council needs to vote on. Also listed are folks that have applied for any openings in those respective boards or committees.
So what do we got to do?
So we can go through, generally we go through each of these, and
All right, so beautification, we have,
we have BZA above that.
okay, so they just want to continue on, right?
BZA has two folks that are
Anybody,
off of term. They both requested to be reappointed.
does anybody have any issues with
I
those two?
recommend that we reappoint those.
Everybody good? All right, they're good. Beautification committee, we have 7 members, 3 that wish to, are their terms all the same? So they don't,
Yes, on this one, because it's a subcommittee of the,
okay. Do we need to change that?
I don't think we can.
Okay,
So we will have openings coming up, so we will need to.
is everybody fine with reappointing Linda Kelly, Marilyn Garner, and Rita Irvin? All right,
We will.
we'll be collecting applications for the other 4.
Correct.
Okay. If we can't get that many people to work out, do we want to try to move that to a 5-person board?
Something
Dick?
that could be discussed.
Well, I don't know if this meeting is where we want to talk about it, but we need to talk about that committee, the Centennial Committee, and budgeting for this kind of work.
Okay.
It needs to be bigger. So because we have a committee with an objective theoretically and no funding.
Can we,
It just doesn't- I think that's why we're having such a.
Can we schedule that for the next
Yeah.
agenda
Yeah,
meeting
I
then?
think so.
Can you make a note to make sure we go through that discussion? Centennial Committee, we have 1 vacancy and 1 application for Leah Althouse. Any issues with Leah? Or Lee? Sorry, it's Lee Althouse.
I don't know.
I don't know her.
I'm fine with it. I make a motion that we accept that.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
But we'll actually approve it. That sends it to the resolution. Right, okay. All right, so that's taken care of. Condemnation Board. Judy and Scott, any issues there, or we just reappoint? They both want to be there, great. Construction Board of Adjustment and Appeals, there are 4 vacancies. How many people are on that board?
There's quite a few, and I don't know the last time it's met, so it's one that's difficult, and they're very specific positions that you want architects and engineers and things like that, so we will re-advertise for that.
If you need some architects and
Specifically.
engineers to apply for the town, let me know. Might be able to help. DRC, we have 2 people, Michael Richards and Ray Boaz, who are willing to stay on. How many people total on the DRC? 7?
7.
And we have 5 up. I'm fine with Ray and Mike. Everybody else?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, Mike and Ray.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I assume Jeff,
Yeah, same, I think
If he wants to,
if he wants to.
if he wants to, Jeff.
He's a good one.
So, do we not need to vote on whether or not, I don't think we talked about this letter, that happened before, that just was like zip, and I just had a chance to read it. Does it at least get entered into record somehow, so that people can see what concerns are regarding the DRC? Because that's what we do at work sessions, talk about what the concerns are.
This needs to be discussed.
Can we put that letter along with that on the discussions for next agenda meeting, please?
In particular, the claim that he makes. Unfortunately, this one drives around town, signs that do not follow town DRC guidelines and did not receive a variance from the community or the town council are becoming more and more common. We need to know specifically.
Which ones we're
Yeah.
talking about?
What backs that claim up.
Yeah.
And
And generally speaking, that is the case from time to time. They pop up, and it's not something that we deal with every single day, but when we notice that and see that there's an issue, we've got to get stuff to deal with.
Yeah,
Well, to
exactly,
me,
give it more.
It's not, something's going to pop up, it may not be addressed immediately, but we need to try to do that.
I'm not throwing Chuck under the bus, but if that's his responsibility, we need to make sure that he's doing his job.
I do see more of the temporary signs, like campaign signs, but not advertisements. And I think we really need to be more aggressive and scroll through that. I don't want to look at that.
Agreed.
But all the rest of the thing,
Can you put that on there?
I did.
Okay.
Made a note.
Thank you, ma'am. So we have one opening for the DRC. So we'll advertise for that, correct?
Well, also Roger Davis, we haven't mentioned him, if we're gonna,
Oh, 2 vacancies, I'm sorry.
so,
I met him for the first time. I didn't know him. He called and wanted to. Very, very nice guy.
Is it?
And would be very qualified, but he's made an application for other positions.
Planning Commission, and I think Planning Commission was his first preference, but he's also
Well, that would,
asked for DRC. Now, we do have.
Mike Richards is on
somebody
both. So,
The question would be whether he would want to serve on both.
Or if we have open-
One or the other.
or if we have an opening in the.
or if we have other openings, other applicants, for one and not the other,
So
so.
let's pull that one.
Is it
Well,
appropriate to hear, sorry,
Go ahead.
is it appropriate in these things to hear from the chair of those individual committees as to the kinds of expertise they're looking for? I'm asking for no particular reason other than I'm still new to this.
If the chair wants to chime in, sure.
Yeah. I don't mean in particular for any particular things, but
You
like,
mean liaison or chair?
I'm asking when we have applicants for a board, does a council ever ask the chair, what sorts of roles do we need filled on this board? Does the council ask those questions? Is that a thing that we can do if we need to?
I
That
have,
suggests you have an abundance of applications.
Yeah, there is that,
And, typically that is not what we're doing.
yeah. But I feel like it's gonna change.
I think usually we ask the liaison.
Okay.
That's what I do.
Generally, if there's, and we're not to it yet, but for instance, the library board, then Karen communicated to me that their board has discussed this and would recommend Julie Ratliff. There's an opening, the 2 people that are up want to be reappointed, but there's also an opening beyond that, and they would recommend her. So generally, that's what we see happen
Okay. If there's a need.
The boards should be aware of the fact that they have folks that are or are not returning and can initiate recommendations or input. But to your question, there's no reason the council couldn't seek that input
Okay.
if they felt necessary.
Usually it takes members of the board to encourage folks to apply.
Right.
So, are we okay with Roger Davis for the DRC then?
Let's hold off. I would rather make his, our first choice for him,
Okay,
planning
if
commission.
it's on.
But whether he would want to serve.
Serve on
I
both.
don't know.
All right, so let's ask. Hemlock Conservation Task Force, no prior openings, one vacancy. Are we okay with all the folks who would like to stay? Josh, Robert, Kyle, and Clyde, Barbara.
Yeah.
I am
It's a
too.
good group. Bill and Bill Lusk is fine. That'd be great.
Adding Bill in there? Great. History Committee, I'm assuming that that one's going to fly by with no problems.
Is there only one person?
There's only one person on that committee?
We did a tour de force.
Term expires this year.
Oh, just one term expires, okay. Library Board. It's in your, per our previous discussion, Juliana Ratliff was recommended by the board.
She'd be great.
Everybody okay with that?
Great.
All right, that's good. MACC, we have one vacancy, Sandra McCrae. We okay with that?
She's gonna come back? She's not gonna come back.
No, she
She is.
according to this.
According to this,
According to this,
yeah.
she says it's.
So Sandra's not?
I thought she already notified.
That's what I say, that's why I'm looking at you, because it says,
Oh.
this says that she is.
Maybe these are reversed. What about Judy Nolan?
She's not coming back either.
Okay.
All right, so we have,
So if Sandra
we know Judy,
is not,
we have Sally Halloran, who is an applicant for other positions as well.
but that's her third choice?
Second choice was Parks.
First was rec.
First was Rec.
Well, let's come back to that. Let's go
We can
through,
double check on
let's
Sandra.
go through the others, because I think there's,
Let's just.
We
talk
have-
about that just half a minute, because we're looking about changing the whole relationship with Mac potentially.
that board would
And
go
so
away,
that
wouldn't
board
it?
might even go away. So maybe that's what well, why don't we just.
Let's hold on. Let's come back to that. Planning Commission, so we don't know what Roger's first or second choice was.
It is first choice is.
It's planning
It's
commission.
planning.
Okay.
Yeah,
Are we okay with Roger there?
I am.
All right.
I am.
What's
Is
next?
there an opening? No. Eddie Smith is the only one on planning commission.
Oh, there's no, okay, so there's no opening.
So
Okay,
he is reappointed.
okay. Eddie Smith, we're all fine with him, assuming?
There will be an opening coming up on planning commission, but
What's going on?
today there's not.
Who's going on?
I would like to ask the chair, if the chair would like to address that. The chair,
Come on. Join us up here.
Van is going to be moving off the mountain in the next few months.
Okay.
So there will be an opening, there's not, I mean, if Eddie remains on, then there's not an opening at this time, but within the next few months,
Are you happy with Roger
yes,
if he wants to do both?
that would be fine.
All right. Does it make sense to put Roger in the DRC and then, or wait to see which one,
I think before we
if he does both?
assign somebody to two, we need to run it by them.
Okay, fair. Thank you, ma'am.
and it sounds like we're
And-
going to be talking about the DRC.
Thank you for your work. It's thankless, I know. Okay, so we're good with that, and we'll come back to that once we talk to Roger. Parks Board, Clyde, I'm assuming is a good? And
So
then
there are
we
two
have-
openings for that? Is that what that means?
There's no openings, is
There's
there?
no openings in the department.
Oh, okay, so these people just expressed interest.
Is it, but it's the second choice for these two, okay. Yeah, we're gonna get in a situation where somebody's not, we got applicants, but we have nowhere to put them. That's a bummer.
Why don't we just ask them?
Uh,
If they'll accept it.
Personnel Committee, we have one opening and no applications. There's only 3 on that, right?
No,
Amy?
there's 5.
Five.
5. Rec Board, we have 1 vacancy. Tom Turner and Robert Barron want to be back on it. I'm assuming that's okay with everyone? And then we have 3 folks for the Rec Board.
Mr. Wyatt has only applied to the rec board, and he's the only one that I know out of the 2 and was at the last rec meeting.
He's the lacrosse.
No, he is the commissioner of baseball and the one who
He's the
came to the
president of
town
baseball.
to offer the money that we need to rebuild the batting cages. So I think he would be a tremendous addition. Nothing against the other 2, I don't know them, but they've also applied to other boards, so.
So you recommend Mark Ryan?
I'll second
I'll
that.
go with it.
Anybody else?
Okay.
Good? All right, so Mark, now, well, let's get through the tree board. Tree board, Marilyn Keller's not coming back, so we're going to have 2 vacancies, but we have Robert Ritchie who applied. Who's the tree board?
That's fine.
Any issues?
No.
Okay.
Good.
So that's good, but we still have 1 vacancy on the tree board.
Well, he's somewhere, he's on the Hemlock Task Force.
The hymn.
We put him on there, right? Does he mind being on 2? I'm assuming not.
The Hemlock Task Force.
Clyde's on 2, right?
Well, we have Bill Lust going on the Hemlock.
The Hemlock Task Force and the tree board are they sort of
They're,
We certainly talk to each other, but they're 2 very different.
two separate groups?
Okay. So we're good with that. Now, going back, which ones didn't we finish?
Sally Howland, we did not, she has made an application for,
Should we okay her for the Parks Board? Oh, no, we don't have her on that Parks Board, don't we?
No, but she did apply for MACC.
She did apply for MAC?
are you, Sally Howland?
I'm sorry.
Sally
I
Howland?
don't know her either.
Don't know her?
Who's on the MAC? Is that you, Dick? Are you fine with that? For right now, until
Yeah,
things get
yeah.
settled?
What do you think? I mean, the whole question of the MAC board, I think is up for discussion at this point.
I understand, but until that changes, I still think we need to have a board in place, and we have somebody who's willing to serve and really wants to serve.
We'll make it a
Did-
preferred choice.
Have we gotten
What's
her
second
application?
choice?
Second choice was Parks, which we don't have any openings, and her first was Rec Board. Patrick Wagner also has, I'd like to,
Yeah, Parks, Rec.
we gotta find something he'd be
Yeah.
interested in. Maybe ask him on the Personnel Committee, we need someone. Beautification Committee. DRC, we need
yeah,
one.
DRC.
Would you mind going back and asking him for those 3 committees, if he'd be interested in any of those?
He's looking up some of those. Yeah.
I was trying to get this, we have, Sally's business owner in the town.
Did we get sent that application?
Oh, do they own the Meltop Toys, is it that? No.
I don't know.
How do I know her name then?
I thought that was
She's
Wagner. Is Patrick Wagner, is that the Wagner family from
Yeah, I think so.
our town attorney for 50 years? Gray Wagner?
I believe.
Good. That's a good person to have on something.
What business is Sally on?
As far as I know, that
I'm trying to think, maybe I do know her.
application came in on the 19th, so
Okay.
it should have been in the packet.
Boyd, what business does Sally own?
Austrian.
Oh, that's how I know her. Good job. That's like, I know.
So we're okay with that for MAC?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we're down to needing, Carol, can you review, what are we down to needing? Thought you made notes on that.
Nothing, I thought we filled it.
No, we've got, you got 4 spots open in Beautification Committee,
But we don't have applicants.
but we don't have applicants, so we're gonna advertise.
We advertise there.
DRC, we have 2 vacancies, and we didn't put Roger Davis on there, because we want to ask him if he's willing to serve on both. That's taken care of. That's taken care of. So it's just those two, right?
Mayor Holly. Hi.
Hi.
I'm Linda with the beautification committee. We do have 2 applicants that we're waiting to hear from
Okay.
on the beautification committee.
All right.
One is the new lady with State Farm.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the other is Trish over here at the fire department.
Okay.
So I'm getting your application back.
So you're gonna still need, you're still looking to recruit 2 more?
And there's one more that I'm waiting to hear from.
Okay. If we get applicants for the beautification committee between now and our Monday meeting, can we approve them? At that meeting,
I could.
can you have the resolutions drawn up
Done,
and
you could discuss them.
just in case? All right. That way we'll get, you're obviously very short-handed, but that way we're able to put a couple people on there to help you in the short run. Is that fair?
Actually, there may be 2 more.
Good.
Besides the other 2 that I'm talking about.
If you get them to us, we'll decide them at the Monday's meeting, so you don't have to go another month with that many people up,
And if I could, so then you've still got 1 open on the MACC,
right?
you still have 1 open on the Personnel Committee, and you still have 1 open on the Tree Board.
And I do know Sally, so
And,
she would be great on the back if she's
and
willing.
currently for the beautification
I
committee,
do
we
know
have 4.
Sally.
Right.
Okay.
In addition to what you've already decided.
All right,
She'll be on the MACC.
so summary, we need 1 more for MACC, 1 for planning commission, 1 for tree board, and 4 for beautification committee. But DRC too, unless,
What we
we
said
have
we were gonna ask
1 for
Roger-
DRC,
Two. I
yeah,
showed
but we
2.
have 2 vacancies for DRC.
Right, and you have not appointed anybody new to that one.
Right, so we've got 1 plus Roger Davis, if he will do both. So we still need 1 for DRC. Do you want to find somebody or get somebody to apply?
If we could, I don't know, do you usually advertise them?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We will, let's we've been through this, and we can advertise specifically for the boards that we still need.
Okay.
Everybody good on that? Can we move on?
One thing, and I don't know how to say this, but it could just be me, but every time I've looked at the board's spreadsheet, basically, what it is on the website, that thing's confusing. And it looks like it could use some love, maybe, so maybe I'm the only one. I could see how it's easy to not be able to tell what's open, and I'm not offering a suggestion as how to make it better.
Well, that was just what I was getting ready to ask for.
Really? Okay,
I'd
good.
be happy to take any suggestions.
I think if you were to have that same spreadsheet, but have everyone who's on the board listed on there, so we know how many people are on each board, who's currently on the board,
Maybe what some rules are about.
what their terms are, and then the next couple lines are, if their term's up this year, yes, no. Would that make it easier for you?
I'd like to be looking at it before I determine that,
You're
but,
talking about this,
yeah,
Oh, we got another one?
which has their name
yeah.
and
Contact.
I don't know if all of this is on, I'm looking at it or not. So it's got the term, when they began, when their current term expires, and it has a paragraph about the board.
I tell you what, I think I may have, probably early on, I asked for just everything I could to try to get my head around the whole thing, and so you probably sent me what you have, and it's not a live document that's getting updated all the time, so that could be part of the confusion. Just would be nice if when we get an application, as council, it would be easier to go and see, who's what and for how long they are and how long the terms are and those kinds of things. It's not urgent, but
Just nice, be nice.
would be nice.
Anything else? I don't hate to, but I'm going to go backwards for just 1 second. Leafing through my paperwork, we just approved the grant for $70,000 for the fire station, but the memo says 65. What's the
memo says
description?
The grant is not to exceed 70. So we're still working on some of the particulars, so just make sure we're covered.
Thank you. Board assignments, okay. MACC, public-private agreement. Boy, where are we?
prior discussions, the last time we met on this, you asked that Dick and I meet with the principals of the new 501c that's developing and discuss their vision for moving forward and how they will be involved with the MACC. During that discussion, basically, we were informed that what they would like to see happen is that they would actually take over the management and operations of the MACC, lease the building from the town, and they would run MACC as opposed to the town doing so. Their idea of what the MACC would be, we're told, is very consistent with what it is now. So that being the case, we started working on documents associated with such an arrangement. Doesn't mean that that's what the council will decide to do, but since our direction was to discuss with them what they had in mind, and then our next discussion is going to be whether or not we move in those directions, we began drafting those documents. We've completed a lease agreement that I've sent to Phil. I was hoping I'd have his review back today, but I haven't gotten it at this point. And basically what they have requested is that the town agree to provide funding at the same level we are now for a 2-year period. And then they would be in a position to take over operations. I think preference would be that funding would gradually decline. I don't know that the town would be in a position to guarantee that far out. So when we started working on the lease agreement, what I did was built in basically some support in the lease agreement. And by doing that, I think it's much less complicated. If we're doing things that are reasonable for a landlord to do, then we're not in an issue where we're actually making a donation to a nonprofit organization. So if in the lease agreement we cover all utilities and we cover the janitorial services as we do now, if they want more, they can pay more. But if we can't cover janitorial services and we cover sprinkler inspections and alarm system and things that make sense for a landlord to do, especially when it's our property, then that automatically builds in some support in that they don't have to pay for those things. Beyond that, then we're left to deal with, if we move in this direction, what level of support through that first 2 years, what exactly does funding at current level mean? So if we look at our current budget, the total operating budget is $177,000. If we take out property liability insurance on the utilities, and this year we have $8,900 in non-capital equipment, things like curtains and things that wouldn't necessarily, they're not absolutely operational expenses. They're things we've chosen to buy this year, and that's really about it. Is that $8,900. So you get down to $134,516. Now, that's our expense side of the scenario. Then you look at the revenue and subtract revenue from that expense, and that gives you what our operating costs are. And that's where it gets a little complicated.
Can I ask a clarification question? Have we moved from lease to MOU?
Yes, I they're all kind of interconnected. The lease is set up based on the fact that we would be moving to an MOU scenario for them to operate MACC.
All right, I just wonder if we shouldn't have the discussion on one and then maybe have the discussion on the other, because if the lease agreement.
I think we can do that, but I would like to put everything kind of in
To just
perspective.
framing the whole thing.
And then if you want
Okay.
to discuss them separately, that's
Okay.
fine. Which, me saying it's fine doesn't mean it's fine. Sure.
Fine with me.
You know what I'm saying? So the lease agreement, again, it builds in some support because we're going to pay for certain things throughout the course of the lease.
But not described by the $134,000.
Correct. Separate and apart. So, and those things like the utilities and insurance and all that's already taken, that's how we get from 177 down to 134. Okay, we're still paying those things, but it's over here in the lease. So we work with that 134.5 number then. But that's just expense side, and that doesn't reflect our actual cost because of our revenues generated. So the 134.5 is a pretty solid number to work with. When you get to determining what you're going to back out from that to account for revenues is when it gets complicated because they have been anything but consistent. So that's one of the main things that we need to discuss is if we were to move forward with this scenario, for instance, if we just backed out what we made in revenue last year, our number would be 102.2.
That's the 134.5 minus 102 is the
minus 32.
Okay.
No, you got 134,517 minus 32,317. That
Gets
puts
you
us
to
at
the
$102,000.
So 3317 was the revenue.
If you take a 2-year average because of the condition of the building, everything that we've been dealing with for the last year, revenues took a nosedive. So if you look at it, the last 2 years, that 102 comes down to 89,000. The 2-year average of revenue is 44,786.
What was the high year for the revenue?
If you look at the last, well, if you look at the, let me find it here. 2013 was 52. 2014 was 66. 15 was 59.
We're way down.
16 was 57. And 17 was 32.
Keep in mind the auditorium, the main source.
That's when that went out.
Right. And that's kind of what I'm looking at is if in this project we'll have the auditorium back in service.
That last number was 32. That was the lowest of all the years.
And that was this
significantly.
past year.
Oh, I thought you were back.
This was this last year, and that's when the auditorium wasn't in use.
Is the auditorium the thing that generates that much revenue? And that's a huge, yeah.
That's really
That's been
the potential for that operation.
And where are we, outside of this, where are we to move forward on the 300,000 we're spending to get that back
Everything's
up?
back to the state. All of the clarifications, all the changes, everything that they've requested have been done.
So you'd have,
Went back to them.
so logically, you'd have to use a revenue based on that auditorium being open and kind of discount.
That's a fair way.
Yeah, it would be unfair to not
Yeah.
include that.
So
Stuff
it's
agreement.
that we're dealing with that,
Right.
not a real, but a reasonable.
So that's kind of where we, you know, with the things built into the lease agreement, I think the MOU will be relatively straightforward once we figure out, you know, what we're willing to commit to. And beyond that, we also need to look at, one of the discussions was if staff transfer, if they become employees of the 501c3. The concern was that it would be expensive for them to pay for insurance for instance. But if we're committing funds and, we're paying $7,000 for insurance, then in reality, they would just need to make the difference between $7,000 and whatever it cost them, and they realize that they can do that.
The other option is, if they're gonna take on our folks for a 2-year period or however it is, we could keep, the director on our bill.
That's gonna be an issue in that, one, just frankly, from a manager's
If
perspective.
it's not, that's fine. I'm just saying that is, if we're
Being
gonna cover costs.
responsible for someone that you don't have any authority over or can direct is problematic.
Understand.
We've also looked at the fact that the state of Tennessee, in our retirement system, even if they're on your payroll, they don't care who writes the check, they want to know who supervises and directs that person, and if it's not the town, they're not eligible to be a state retirement participant. So that's the complication.
I have a concern if we're giving that much money to a nonprofit, that we don't have control of what that money's used for.
That's the point I was
Which
going to.
Not specific about the medical insurance money or money.
No, I'm just talking about the whole
The
thing.
whole pot.
That is the next question then, if we set an amount, okay, right now it's costing us X dollars. When you look at revenue and costs, bottom line is costing the town X dollars to operate the MACC. And we will commit to provide that for a 2-year period. But if we do that, X dollars of that has to be used for certain things. And I think that's the only way we have to protect the interest of those employees.
So that would be done under the MOU though, not the lease?
Correct.
Okay.
And again, that's why it's all kind of,
Until we see the details of both documents.
well, that's,
And are you working on this? Okay.
but that's the problem. We need direction from council to know what the details are.
But in round numbers, you're done 170 is the budget.
Right.
In round numbers. And in revenue, you can say 60 is a round number. So it's 110 is the number we're doing. And that's where we have to divvy that up, figure out who's going to pay what for what period of time. If we're going to get into this agreement.
When you come down to it, if you're looking at, and again, determining how we're going to consider revenue in this scenario, if we look at just last year's revenue, we would be saying, okay, the actual cost is $102,000. And we will or won't commit to that. If we look at the last 2 years, that drops to 89. If we look at the 3-year average, it drops to 84.9. If we look at the 5-year average, it drops to 78. So that's the first question is, at what level are you guys want me to work with? And then once we get that amount set, we determine what things, how we dictate how that's used.
I'm just giving my opinion on this. Dick knows this better than anybody else, in my opinion. And that's why we, at that point, said, Dick, you go ahead and kind of take the lead on this. Instead of negotiating it here and saying we're willing to go up to here, I would let Dick, I trust what Dick's going to do on this, so I would let you kind of go at it and see what the fairest thing is for everybody.
Well, thank you. And what we're not setting up is a static arrangement. This is an arrangement that would change as the situation changes. So the objective is,
right,
of getting to what would be a stable separation of expense.
But if I could just add one little thing, also keeping in mind that the income generating potential, sort of hate to look at everything as ROI, but looking at it that right now, is going to be somewhat diminished until the back half of the building gets back in play as well, which is part of the reason for the, for the nonprofit to begin with, is to try to.
Yes and no, because if you look at the back part of the building, it's not the income generator. The front part of the building is the income
Stages.
generator. And
The whole
that
building
includes-
is-
But we don't make much money in the cafeteria. A lot of stuff, the Lions Club meets back there, Silver Sneakers meets back there. We have events back there, but that is not a huge income generator.
It's used a lot.
It is used a lot, I guarantee, but it doesn't create the income under the way it's operated today. In the future, maybe it could, but most of the income comes from the lessons we give and the events that we hold in the field.
I go back to, I think it's too complex for us to sit here and negotiate right here.
However, though, this is the only place that Dick and I can have this conversation legally.
Yeah.
So this is where it should take place.
And if I may,
We're not ready to have it.
Yeah.
I can detail that.
I think that the idea behind this 2-year scenario is to provide the opportunity to get the back of the building ready. I mean, really, the only thing that would have to be done, as I've discussed with them, is if they raise the money and they put the sprinkler in the back of the building, it can be used. There's still a lot of other work that has to be done, but it could be used.
Remind me, the $300,000 that we're going to spend for the theater in the front part,
Sprinklers.
does that include the money that was set aside for the sprinklers? Or is that sprinkler money above and beyond?
So sprinkler money.
That's part of the
is
300.
included in that.
Okay.
So, and it is kind of complex, but at the same time, I really don't know that it is. We have a 2-year window that what they've asked is, will you fund at the same level you are now?
Okay.
And if we can determine what that is, and if there are any things that the town wants to, for lack of a better term, dictate that those funds be used for, such as employee insurance and things like that, then we're in a position to draft that document and we'll have something to actually work from.
I think if we're giving that much money, we have to specify exactly what the money's used for.
Repeat your comment about how you model. There's several models for this thing. And the one that's used most often is Bachman or McCoy.
Right.
But that's really not the model that Bo is using. I think he's using the country club.
Well,
And that's, we don't specify what they.
But we don't give them money.
right. That's the thing, and it's really a hybrid of all of those when it comes down to it, because what they would like to see is ongoing support from the town at some level, and that's why we built in the things we did to the lease. So at least there's this amount of support that the town's going to provide by covering these things. Beyond that, they've asked for 2 years of the towns providing the same level of funding that we do now. So that would be budget minus revenue. This is what the town actually pays to operate the MACC.
Let me
So,
ask you a question. Are you all ready with the pro forma of what you figure a budget will be and under certain hypothetical conditions at this point?
Believe it or not, I'm staying as far removed from this as is humanly possible. Cheryl might be able to speak to it more because she's been meeting with the folks that are working on that. Cheryl Graham, who's sitting here.
Cheryl, what you want to do?
No.
But I guess if we're going to get to that, if that becomes an issue, then we need that kind of input.
Yeah.
To get a sense of what.
I want to toss one other thing in the mix, just real simple. As we're looking at the model, I agree that it's not the same as the country club. It's a different thing. But the country club, tremendous amount of overall property value if you value the property, no doubt. It's nothing like rec sports. Rec sports you will always have and are always important and are part of the quality of life. But the fields, assuming the topography allows it, could be anywhere at any time. When we're talking about this, if you look at the land use plan that identifies valuable properties in town, and we have one. That's, it's the oldest thing that we own. So right now, while this thing's close to 100 years old, it feels a little bit more like a liability than it does an asset. When you've gotten it through this stage and you've gotten things shorn up and it's 200 years old, it's one of the most valuable things the town has because of its age and historical nature. So there's another way to look at the MACC that's different from the others, that's what I'm saying. So it's kind of a thing of its own, just speaking for the building separate from all of this.
Yes, but if it's good, but if we're gonna put strings on the money, then in fairness, we need.
Oh, no, I'm not complaining about that at all. But as we were talking about ways of looking at it, I just want to look at, you can't, it's not the same.
I still.
So we have some work to do, but
Yeah.
your group has some work to
Well,
do too.
Cheryl's the one you should ask that question.
I still think that we put it in your hands, and Dan's staying as far away as possible, so you don't have to worry about that, so.
So where are you?
We are waiting for the lease and the MOU so we can finalize our 501c3. And at that point, we can begin fundraising. Our goal is full support for the town for the first 2 years to give us time to get the construction done. We're well on our way to raising the $70,000 that we need to sprinkle back half of the building so we can have full use of the entire building. And then begin massive amounts of fundraising as a nonprofit so that we can, get back to where it needs to be.
I think there's general agreement on that as an umbrella project. When we get to this question of appropriating public money and making sure it gets spent the way we want it.
The first 2 years to be covered at the current rate, it's to cover the current bills. I mean, we're not going to take the money that would go for, let's say, someone's salary or insurance or the power bill or whatever, and use it somewhere else. The money that comes to the town will pay for the same things it's paying for today.
And that's what I'm talking about in terms of if we provide these funds, it will be used for this.
Exactly.
And that needs to be.
Then the only question is, what's that amount? Because our cost, again, is expense minus revenue. And, we could just say, okay, here's our 177,000, but we get all the revenue.
Exactly.
And if you raise more than X, we'll give it, that's just too convoluted. We just really need to nail down what that number is that the town commits to and how it'll be used, come to agreement with that. And we have the guts of the MOU, we can get it drafted.
Considering that the auditorium is still unusable and we have no firm date when it will be usable again, my gut tells me to go ahead and budget using the revenue from the last 12 months because that shows the
Worst case.
the current situation and the inability to use our biggest money maker, which is the auditorium.
Again, how about if, and I know you want to move forward, and I don't mean to complicate it, but if we set it up so that we're starting out, you don't have the use of the auditorium.
Mm-hmm.
Theoretically, we're talking about this starting July 1.
Mm-hmm.
So if the auditorium is back in play, then that scenario could significantly change.
Correct, yeah.
If the council is willing to look at it initially, we will look at last year's revenue to set the first year contribution, and then look at revenue generated during the first 12 months to set the contribution for the second year.
I'm willing to do that.
That way, if the auditorium comes back into play and it's being used and you're generating more revenue as the town would be if we were still operating it,
Exactly.
then we're playing on an even field.
Sit down and look at it again.
Okay. All right. I've got what I need.
And then whatever language it is that maintains the programs. And we have to understand, I mean, this is a creative operation, and so things are going to change. And they're going to expand hopefully beyond what the core
That's what I was going to say. Our goal is not just to
maintain, but to grow it. Yeah.
And those things are covered in the lease agreement relative to how the facility can be used, that it will continue to be a community center for arts and education
and associated functions and all of that. So all of that's already covered in the lease agreement.
One question about, about the lease. It was specified in there that the nonprofit match would turn over to the town on a monthly basis, on this, who's going to be using what?
Right.
And now, does that need to be, I mean, if it's the wedding between Billy Joe and Bobby Sue, do you really need to know that, or you just need to know we're going to have a wedding?
I think that's something we can work out. I think basically the general functions, because there's also a clause in there that says we don't have to actually approve it unless there appears to be a considerable unusual liability. So if we know in advance what's going on, we'd have the opportunity to say, hang on a minute, we need to take a look at this. Who it is and all that, we just need to know what's going on.
Right.
Okay. Don't do it in the background.
I just want to get clarification because we're introducing the terms 501c3 and 503c3. So you're going for 501, not a nonprofit.
It is a nonprofit.
Okay.
It's 501.
But 503c3 is a nonprofit.
501, yeah.
They're variable, they're various nonprofits. Some are charitable, some are not.
How certain you can have that?
It's dependent on the lease agreement.
Everything else, as soon as we,
Well, you have to have your organization together before we can have a contract with that organization.
we've had an organization.
Are you a 501c3 certified?
We can't get that until we submit the lease and the MOU with our paperwork.
It's required.
It's required. I know, but it is. That's the only thing we're waiting for. As soon as we send that, we can start.
They've met with an accountant multiple
We
times.
can't have an agreement with
We can
it's
give
not
them,
technically a nonprofit.
I'm going to let Phil deal with it.
yeah, we can any agreement can be made subject to the execution of.
No, that's fine.
So we can do that. And then just for the record moving forward, as what we contribute to that operation, if council decides to move forward in that direction, as it is a donation to a nonprofit, there's a process that we are required to go through in terms of advertising that and everything. So we'll work through and document all the requirements in that regard too. And again, once all this is put together, then it'll come back for further discussion and all. This is just needing to know the details of what to put in those documents to finish them up.
Yeah, we're under the gun because until we have these documents and actually get our
And you're
status
good.
that we need, getting
I have what I
donations is a
need.
problem.
Okay.
Going for grants is impossible.
Bo says he's good.
Who's going to donate if you can't get it?
So we're good.
Do you think that we'll be able to have
Bo
a,
says he's got what he needs. So
can I
we're good.
ask a question?
Sure.
Do you think by the next agenda meeting, we'll be able to take a look at something, or is it going to be longer than that? Okay. I just asked if we did enough time to thoroughly review the documents. Thank you. Thank you for your work on this.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. All right, next on is SSVC, School System Investigation Section. Who wants to?
I don't mind starting. So the reason that I asked that at the last meeting specifically to be on here is because the SSVC has given us its report, it's given us its conclusion. It's missing 2 members. It doesn't exist as it was set up to begin with. And we need to make at least one decision about that, and I think a couple of decisions, but sticking to just that one thing. Perhaps we disband the SSVC because it's done.
I'm in support of that proposal. I don't know if disband, I'd dissolve, but I believe.
Change the
Yeah,
dissolution date.
and I believe we've gotten the information. I think the work they did was exemplary. I think we got the answer that we were looking for, or the information, if you want to call it that. Identified several barriers going forward which have not been resolved, which I think are unlikely to be resolved. If they are resolved, I think it needs to be done by an organic citizen movement, not the town council. So I'm in support of this recommendation that and I propose we do it today.
If I might, as the SSVC was formed by resolution, ultimately you would have to have a resolution to amend that to change the date.
Yeah.
So, technically, I don't think we could definitively do it, but a motion and vote to do that and have a resolution at the next meeting.
At the council meeting.
Yeah,
Correct.
sure.
I'm not terribly opposed to that, but I'd like to think through two things before we do that. We've said all along that we would engage the public as a council to answer questions on the report. And we've never really done that in an appropriate fashion. And do we think that people still want to have that engagement and question the report? Because we promised we'd do that. But if people don't want to engage, or you think, we've been promised for a year, say, don't worry, we'll do it, and then all of a sudden say, no, we're not going to engage you in this process.
Well, we've had two meetings, haven't we?
No, we had one that was proposed
We
by
had kind of
Dan
half-
that was
half.
added to our council meeting, which we had to turn away about 30 people that never got to come in because
More
of
than
the
that.
fire code.
I mean, people were streaming out there,
But
we only gave an hour.
But the committee had two meetings.
Right. What we had talked
two
about
public meetings.
was them presenting to the public, and then us engaging
Oh, okay.
the public once the public fully
Fair enough.
understood
Number two,
the question
in
meeting.
January.
I'm with you.
We
Okay.
haven't done that step yet.
We have not.
We've taken a lot. Yeah, go ahead.
That's a separate issue from what's on the table right now, which is, does the SSVC need to continue as it exists? The council can still do what you're talking about. We can have as many meetings as we want, and they can all be public and scheduled for as long as we want, but that's a separate thing that we have to decide, are we going to do that? The question on the table is,
Right, but the question is, if we do that, do we still want the SSVC involved so they can answer any of the factual questions as we engage the public? Just like we did last time, we had, I think, Dr. Friedel and Amy sitting up here in case a budget question came up that we couldn't handle when we're asked. So, in consideration of that, I'm saying that would be one reason that we might not do it just yet if we believe it's still important to engage the public, which we have promised from the beginning. I'm not adverse
And we could
if
disband
everybody's
right
not going to
after.
go, yeah, or if everybody's not going to go crazy just because we didn't disband it, but we have promised to do that. And I'm not really, either way, I'm not too worried about it. Number two is I would like to hear from Dr. Friedel if he has anything to add before we do that.
I'm more than willing to hear that. But,
Do you want to, Dr. Friedel, do you have anything to share or? Your thoughts on this?
If it's your intention to simply carry on with the current SSVC membership through your public meetings, I don't have anything to add.
We could, but could you, if we did disband, would you still be willing as a private citizen and not a member of that committee? And we'd have to ask Amy or Charlie or anybody else involved. Would they be willing, if we had these series of meetings, to be there and kind of address the factual issues on this?
I would be happy to do that. I think you'd have to ask each individual member.
Okay.
If there's any interest in having the SSVC continue to look into issues related to its report, then I think that's a separate question.
Well, the biggest issue that I have, and I don't see a resolution to, and I believe it's the same thing Dick has. After I read the report and everything, the first thing was it improved education for kids, number one, or educational outcome. And I think you did a very good job outlining that smaller districts would do that, closer choices to the classroom. It's like if I asked Amy, would you put your children in this school that has an 80-to-1 teacher ratio, or this class that has a 3-to-1 ratio every day of the week? The parent's going to say, I'll take a 3-to-1. So I'm convinced on that first. Second is, I think your budget was great. Everybody in the world went through it. We had access to cover MDF. The third was the inclusion of everybody in the mountain. And we've said from the beginning, if we don't have it, we can't. And I don't see a clean way to do that. And I think, Dick, is that where you are on this?
Absolutely.
What, is there anything you can add that, on that inclusion piece? I know there were 3 or 4 options, but is there anything that would clear up that piece for us? Do you think? I'm just asking your opinion, not the SSVC opinion.
Right, the SSVC is not discussed. I can't be the spokesperson for discussion we have.
Is Susan still here?
I think it's a credit to John and the committee that the report more or less speaks for itself. And I mean, it's thorough, it's factual, and it not only addresses the questions specifically that we asked, but it also addresses some of the things that we didn't ask and considers them to be barriers to in fact doing that, and which I appreciate very, very much. I personally don't see that any further investigation as we set it up by the SSVC is appropriate or necessary at this point in time.
Can I make a motion?
I'd still like to discuss.
Yeah. I don't think this question is over though, by any means. And I thought all along that this question really appropriately belongs among the citizens of the community, or the communities, better said. And I think we're at that point. And again, I'm not apologizing or retracted and have any regrets for what we've done. But I think we've got the answer we requested. We've got it's a very interesting point. I think we have sort of picked at a scab. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that.
And I'm encouraged by the engagement and what we've learned and the interest.
Yeah, but at this point, I think it has to become a citizens movement, not led by or subsidized by or promoted by the town council. I think Bo Watts, I don't know if you saw the article in the paper today, but in his comment, the way he reflected on what his role is, he's an enabler. If the citizens want to do this, then he's behind it. He'll figure out a way to make it happen. If the citizens aren't with it, then we don't have a role to play, frankly.
Right.
And I think that's where we are.
I agree. But I want to commend Mayor Howley and Amy and Dr. Friedel for a phenomenal effort and great leadership to bring this to the public for discussion. And it gives options, it gives more information, and so I'm very appreciative for your efforts.
But I did lay a question out there, and I am interested if in your mind you found an inclusion piece somehow, or that would play into the issues that I have concerns with, or Dick has concerns. I'm guessing everybody can.
Not an inclusion piece in the sense that Dick has talked about, where all 3 communities participate in elections, in funding, in attendance.
And managing. I mean, it'd be a collective management. There's no way to do that.
Election of school board would be
right
as well. It has become clear to me that through conversations with the mayor and I had with Mayor Coppinger, and simply listening to the chatter from the school board and from the commissioners, that Hamilton County is not going to support an interlocal agreement that would be of the nature that we talked about in the report, that would enable a 3-community school district. One option, one idea that we haven't looked into would be a school district for Walden and the town of Signal Mountain with school choice on the mountain for Hamilton County residents, where Hamilton County had a building and Signal Mountain School District and Municipal School District have 2 buildings that would accommodate about 1,800 students for Signal Mountain District. And there are not 1,800 students, there are fewer than 1,700 from Walden and Signal Mountain. And then a system whereby we have school choice for residents of Hamilton County as top priority. And the residents of Walden and Signal Mountain could opt for Hamilton County to attend HCDE schools. That would be the next best thing to a guaranteed through community school district, in the sense that you would have choice, but you would also have a smaller, locally directed, locally governed school district.
Well, you're not saying exclude unincorporated, right?
It would be up to the capacity of the building.
But everything you've just said is outside the purview of the SSVC, of what it's.
Not if you read the resolution that establishes SSVC.
That's, I can do that. And do you have it? Do you have it handy? Okay, that'd be good to do.
I don't know how.
This committee was created by the Signal Mountain Town Council for the purpose of evaluating the viability of establishing, funding, operating, and maintaining a municipal school district and reporting associated findings to the town council. There's nothing in there that says anything about the boundaries of the school district. Municipal school district could simply be the town of Signal Mountain.
But the problem with that, to move the conversation along, the problem with that though is you then can't, the folks in the unincorporated would have an option. They could go to a school with HCDE. HCDE would still be responsible for educating.
Correct.
But they'd also have a first choice option with Signal Mountain Walden School District.
Correct.
Okay. But you can't guarantee them a spot on the board. You can't guarantee them a chance to vote on the issue.
Correct.
And you can't get them to fund it through
Right.
taxes. So, I mean,
Well, you can get them to fund it through taxes because, as we learned from the SSVC, money follows the
Money
child.
follows the student.
yes, but you still have a municipal obligation, which they are not
You can't,
responsible
right.
for.
You'd have to make a decision that they don't have to pay anything or charge them a fee, one or the other.
Yeah.
I mean, because it is 2% of the entire budget, less than that. It's not a huge amount.
But it does undercut the HCDE argument by Attorney Scott Bennett that HCDE needs to retain the buildings in order to educate the students that it has an obligation to educate. If there was a building that was adequate for the.
My problem is, I think this is an argument that needs to be held in a different venue with a different, under a different auspices.
I agree.
And I think it's time, and there's no reflection, John, on the committee or you at all. I just think we got the answer. I did, at least I did. And I think if it's a movement that has legs, then it'll grow legs.
And I tell you, the work that you all did as a committee, the feedback that you all had to deal with, for lack of a better term, the amount of effort for an unpaid job was absolutely spectacular. And we got a report as good, if not better, than the Bartlett and the other reports where they paid hundreds of thousands of dollars. And once again, we had citizens who step up to look at great topics and look at things that are very important.
Ready when you are.
So I can't thank you enough.
Thank
I
you.
really can't.
Thank you.
Or your committee. And I think we need to do something to commend them. If we do shut down, I think we need to do something to commend them.
I agree. Thank you for your time.
You wanted to make a motion?
Yeah, I think I'd like to make a motion to amend the resolution that created the SSV to change the dissolution date to February 13th, which is the day after our next meeting. Excuse me?
The day after?
February 13th, which will be the day after our next council meeting, because
Because it has to be done with a resolution.
it has to be done with the resolution, and we would do the resolution at the council meeting.
I see the 12th.
Can we do it the same day?
So are we not having a meeting then?
I'm trying to
It's okay.
I think he said that he would still attend the meeting, he would volunteer to ask the question.
The other thing it does is if there's other opportunities, it frees them up without being under a microscope.
That's right, that's right. It allows anyone to talk about anything they want to talk about.
So what do you have for a motion there?
Well, I didn't catch it all. So what I did get was, he made a motion to amend the resolution to change the date that the committee is
Dissolved.
dissolved to February the 13th.
February 13th. Is that, I second.
Does that sound like that's,
Yeah, and I mean, if there's more of a comfort level for it to be immediate, I don't know that it has to have a date. We can simply make a resolution that it's amended and that the committee is hereby, so we're
Dissolved?
dissolved
Yeah.
upon passage of that resolution.
Does it make sense to run the combinations through that same resolution?
I would do it separate.
Okay. Can I, we got
well,
a motion on-
motion.
We have a motion and a second.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
did.
I second, yeah.
We have a motion on the table. Any further discussion? All
And
in
right,
favor?
right now, the motion does set a date.
Are you okay with
Of
it?
the, of the,
I don't, what do you think? How do you do this sort of thing?
I'd like to do it at the end of January. I mean, if we're gonna free them up, let's free them up now.
Well, the council will not have met yet, and it's a resolution, and we want to do resolutions
I
at the
don't
public
think
meeting.
there's any issue with making the resolution dissolve the SSV upon passage of that resolution. It's effective immediately upon passage
Okay.
of this resolution.
So
Yes,
you making that amendment?
totally fine.
Dick, your comments?
I'm good, yeah.
Any further discussion? Amy, and this is your, what's next?
I was, you know what? I didn't know what
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you,
You
sir.
abstain?
Thank you.
Because she didn't vote.
Okay. John? Thank you, Rick. Do you mind staying or no? Well, okay.
thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'd like to make another, if we're done with that one, I'd like to also, I'm not ready to word this yet, but as part of this discussion, if we as a board are moving forward, I'd like for that to be on record in terms of resources, meaning not just money, but Boyd's time asking the attorney to do things. Is the board, is the council pursuing the study of an independent school district further? Because right now, we're not on record at all, other than just the fact that we put the SSVC together. And we're the only body that has standing to do that. The only legal remedy we have is to petition the state to allow us to take advantage of that. I would like to know if we're doing that. Are we pursuing this anymore, or are we done?
I don't think there's anything on record. I don't think we have to address it. I wouldn't address anything that limited our ability to do so.
It wouldn't limit it.
That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying that that's the parameter I put on it. I think that doesn't really mean anything. That's just my opinion. But I would like to, since you haven't made a resolution yet, I'd like to make a resolution that we do something special and a accommodation for everyone who served on that board, everybody who was involved. And I don't know what we can do special, plant a tree. No, they did a hell of a lot of work, and they did a great job.
I would support.
I don't know how we did, if
100%.
anybody's got
I
any
agree with
ideas.
that 100%.
Does anybody second that?
Second.
All right. Discussion on how we honor these folks for their time and effort? Susan, any ideas? Trip to Hawaii or something?
I want to be on the board.
Short of that, a tree sounds good.
I'm sure certificates of, appreciation.
Absolutely, and maybe we'll plan an SSVC trip.
An acronym, unacronymable acronym. SSVCT.
I can't think of a tree that starts with a V, a sycamore, a sycamore.
Exactly the same.
A weeping willow.
I'd like to address Dan's point though, because I think it's important.
Can we vote on this motion that's on the table first?
I thought we had, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, with Dr. Bob's idea for a certificate of appreciation.
I have a certificate
Okay.
A tree okay with you, Bob?
Oh, yeah.
Where the tree sitting?
I'm on the board for the trees.
You seconded, is that okay?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I like trees.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Dan, one, could you?
Well, I want to make sure I understand it before I jump on it, because I think I'm in agreement. But I want to make sure. Limiting what we investigate is one thing. Promoting an idea is a little different. And I think we got cast incorrectly, but nonetheless cast as promoting an idea. And I think that's what we need to work very hard to dissociate ourselves from. And I think that's where you're kind of wanting to go. And I agree with you. I mean, there are all sorts of interesting questions you can ask about anything. And the question is, do we have the resource and the time, and is it a real benefit to us to go there? And at this point, where I have come out, it's of no benefit for us as a council to pursue this issue. Now, again, I said, I don't think this is a dead issue. I don't think this is closed by any stretch. And it'd be interesting to see what happens if it becomes, within the citizens of this community and associated communities. But it's my desire, and hopefully the council's desire, that we get on with business of the town and let this thing kind of go where it's going to go on its own.
So that, again, I'm not opposed to it. We're going to get probably some blowback either way this thing comes down. I'm obviously prepared for that, but we had said we'd give folks a chance to engage us, the council.
There's nothing that prevents somebody from coming to council meeting and asking a question, or Dan can hold a forum or something that addresses the questions that people have. But right now, I just don't.
I mean,
I don't see it.
I think there's probably a large group that just wants us never to think about this again.
Well,
I think there's a large group that has been looking for some answers and would actually like to engage and discuss some of the points of the SSVC. I'm not saying one is right or one's wrong. We just, as a council, for the whole time,
but
you'll get your chance.
I don't think we are the interlocutor of those discussions. That's what I'm trying to.
I'm still not sure what your proposal is, Dan.
The proposal would be to go on record that the town of Signal Mountain is no longer pursuing an independent school district as a body.
Yeah.
That's just,
We were never.
we never were, we never
And
tried.
that's why I say we need to discuss it.
Because that goes on record saying we did, and that's not the case.
I can't agree with that.
How would you word it?
There's nothing to work.
We just did. We shut down the SSVC.
Well, not necessarily. If someone from the newspaper called and, like with the whole thing that just came up with Mr. Gardenhire, I'm not able to say as a council member that as a council member, I can say clearly that the town of Signal Mountain is not pursuing an independent school system. Because by intents and actions, it appears that we are.
That's your opinion.
That's
But we never took that role.
And that has to do with the entire state, that's not something that's been proposed.
Our town manager has been directed to do his job properly, and so this is not any kind of a problem with anything that Boyd has done, to write letters and to do things that would pursue the goal of an independent school system. I don't think the town manager, that would, is that incorrect? I don't want to put any words into your mouth.
Are you wanting to?
Well, I would like to hear from,
I think the issue that brings this up, that makes this what it is and awkward, I think, is the question, are the things that have been identified as open questions. These are questions that weren't addressed by the SVCC report and were actually created in essence by the SVCC report. And so we want to.
My comment goes back to, from what I'm hearing from Dan is we need to go back and engage the public on this because they need some sort of certainty or some answer. And it's what we've promised them all along.
That's not what you're hearing, that may be what you're hearing, that's not what I'm saying.
Well, if you're not saying that, then we don't need to do anything.
What I'm saying is we are the body that has standing to pursue this or to not pursue this. Are we pursuing this as a body? Is there anything else that this town will direct, is there anything else that this council can direct staff to do in order to resolve issues that would allow this to happen based on the suggestions from the viability committee?
May I? And I think if we kind of back up a little bit, when this came to council, when the ad hoc committee came to council and made the presentation, it was very compelling. Council decided to investigate. Okay, formed an SSVC and decided to investigate. Now, I think where we're getting mixed up, we're not deciding to stop doing anything that we haven't done before. I think we're back to where we were when the ad hoc committee came. You guys decided, do you want to investigate? And the answer was yes, and you did that. With that to the side, now we're at this point. We have the SSVC report. It says what it says. We have stated, y'all have stated that if we can't get past these things, it doesn't make sense. I think that's where we are. Now you're back to the decision just like you were with the investigation. Do we want to investigate this? The answer was yes. Now the question is, do we want to pursue this? And that's something I work very hard to keep a very definite line between whether we're investigating and we're pursuing. People don't see that, I think, sometimes, but that's been the effort all along. Yeah. So I really, if we're going to approach that, I think that's simply the question. We are where we are. We have the information provided by the report. Does the council wish to pursue this any further? Because that question has never been asked, even though some people think that was the motivation behind the whole thing. In reality, it wasn't. That question has never been asked.
So three things. The first is mildly flippant, but I think you need a certificate and a tree as well through this whole process. The second one is, if we decided to investigate, can't we decide to no longer investigate?
I think that's pretty much what you've done.
We just
dissolving the SSVC.
Can we add that wording to that resolution?
You can make it amended at this point because you would vote.
I mean, because the purpose of the SSVC was to investigate this, and they've been dissolved.
So I'd like to amend that resolution. Maybe we have to vote again. That because the town of Signal Mountain is no longer investigating the creation of an independent school district, we...
Or just say cease and desist further investigation.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to say no.
He said just cease and desist further investigation. It's just another way of saying that.
So this council has decided that although we've promised all the years to engage the public,
we can still do that. We can engage the public on anything.
You're doing an investigation if you're sitting there listening to what people's concerns are. In that investigation.
There might be a whole movement to investigate us, the way we chose to go about this. I mean, if someone came to the council next week and said, oh, I'd like to have a public hearing about how this whole thing went down so we can talk about it and just be better, that might be something we could vote on and do.
I think that people are going to, after this motion has been passed, say, and we have said, this particular question is now a moot question. The question lingers. And as public officials, you're going to get asked questions. Dan, you've become a spokesperson. In a sense, you're going to get asked questions. And what I want to be able to disassociate is your personal opinion from the opinion of council. That's what I'm really trying to do. I'm not trying to suppress anything, but I want to make it clear that the council, whether I speak or you speak or Dan speaks, is not speaking through any individual member of council, that we speak as a body. And because I don't think this, like I said, I don't think this issue's going to go away. And I think you're going to get questions, Amy. I think you will too, and I'm sure you will too. Maybe not so me, but that's what I'm trying to get to.
I hesitate to define anything in fantasy and corner because we have over and over said we would engage folks, and so I'd be disappointed if, unless we hear from the folks that that's not what they want. I'm also fine with that. I think it's defined well enough, in my opinion.
I agree.
So is there a second for the amended motion?
Well, we haven't actually written it clearly yet. Is there a second for the amended motion?
If you want to try to read it and see what it is?
The original one, and then read the amended.
Okay, so the original one says to amend the resolution to change the date of the committee dissolution to dissolve, the date to dissolve the committee on passage of this amended resolution.
That's the original.
Right. And so now, as I understand it, you want to add,
Whereas,
to stop the town investigation of the incident.
I don't think I would say it that way.
That's two different. I'm not willing to second an amendment.
Yeah, that's not what I was saying. Whereas the town of Signal Mountain is no longer investigating an independent school district.
You can't say we were no longer doing something that we were.
We were doing something. We were investigating an independent school district.
Now you take it.
Investigating the viability of an independent school district.
So whereas, let's put those words in then, whereas the town of Signal Mountain is no longer investigating the viability of an independent school district.
Whereas the town of Signal Mountain, the report concluded that it is viable.
I think that needs to be added in too.
Or we can leave it at your original, I mean, I don't really understand what the goal, because I feel like you're being a little bit cryptic in what you're wanting. What I sense, and tell me if I'm wrong, is that you're wanting to make sure that nobody on this council directs Boyd or anyone else to use town resources to answer questions related to an independent school district. Is that what you're trying to stop?
That's an accurate description of a portion, and so.
But in every other area, we're able to do that. I call Boyd and say, hey, Timberlinks playground, here's what we've got. Can you look into X, Y, or Z? If you can't put those type of parameters, I think that's. I'm not saying that, here this is going to get all twisted around like, oh, we've got this secret conspiracy to go do that behind every fact. I'm not saying do that. I'm just saying in a general sense, if we start there, then we've got to do it for all the other boards.
That's so.
We can't have town resources allocated to investigate this because the council has to decide whether or not they want to add a football field or whatever.
Reasonable people can do reasonable things. This is
Exactly.
Let me finish. Yes, and the slippery slope that you talk about, the slippery slope is the thing that people leave off of that is a fallacy. The slippery slope is a fallacy. Not everything is a slippery slope. If you have something that needs to be shorn up in order to make it clear that you're not doing something, it doesn't mean you have to do that with everything else. We don't need to govern that way. But this situation, and this is my opinion, I'm not speaking for the town, for anybody who's listening, is not good for us anymore. If it comes back in the way that Dick G said, in an organic way, where you have a lot of people, who really want this to happen,
We're not writing something down that says, and we can never talk about this again. It's just saying that we're done, so that when the press calls, we can say, the town of Signal Mountain, by resolution, has decided that it's not pursuing an independent school district. And then anyone who wants to, if you want to go and cheer Gardenhire's bill, you can, but you're not doing it for Signal Mountain. Right now, the perception is that Signal Mountain is pursuing this, and I think it's hurting us as a town.
You're creating the conspiracy, Dan. There is no conspiracy. You're making this seem like we had that intent, and there was no intent. So you're trying to assign an intent to it, and that's what you're trying to do. And
No, that's not what I'm trying to do.
that's what I believe you're doing.
You can believe that.
I can't support it. I don't know about else.
So is the town of Signal Mountain still investigating an independent school district?
Do we have a second on this?
We were investigating the viability through the SSVC, which we have since dissolved.
That was investigating the viability of a what? Of an independent school district. Are we still investigating the viability?
Viability. We are no longer investigating the viability,
Have we heard back about our project?
because that was our original
What about the
intent.
other questions? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not willing to just completely drop this, and I'm not,
I still have answers I'd like to know, just because we went that far.
well, we can pursue those as individuals.
And if you say no,
No, you can do it as an individual, it's just not that, it's that the town is not doing it anymore.
the board's the one who's communicating, as appropriately should be.
That's my point.
Yeah, I have real problems with that at this point. That, because the perception is, like it or not, that we are actively involved in pursuing this issue beyond the dissolution of the SSVC. And that's what we need to sever. It just seems like,
Whereas the town of Signal Mountain is no longer investigating the viability of an independent school district.
is that all we have?
And that's,
And then it goes on into the rest of the,
I'm sorry, say it again.
that's the beginning of the amended, can you go ahead and read that in context with the whole thing? Yeah.
That's the whereas that comes before
Oh, I thought we dispensed with that.
be it resolved.
Okay.
That's what I thought.
So the first motion that was approved was to amend the resolution to change the date to dissolve the committee upon the passage of the amended resolution. Whereas the town of Signal Mountain is no longer investigating the viability of an independent school district.
Yeah, that's reversed.
So in the resolution, it would say, whereas we are no longer investigating the viability of an independent school district, therefore, be it resolved that the SSVC is dissolved upon passage of this.
I can second that motion.
Any other discussion? All those in favor
Wait,
say
yes,
Wait.
yeah. Bob, I'd like to ask you to vote for this resolution. I think it's good for our town. I think it doesn't hurt us in any way for anyone to discuss. I think it's freeing in a way that anyone who wants to be for something and to talk to anyone about anything is fine. It's just that it's not the town anymore. It's individuals doing what they want to do. And we can have meetings, Chris, if you still want to talk. We can talk this as much as we want to publicly. It's, I hope that you'll vote for it because I think it makes it better for our town, and that's what our responsibility is. One little thing I'd like to add to this whole thing is, even in viability, the viability response that came back was, yes, if, with these contingencies. But even with those contingencies, if all of those things like boom, 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 they were all clicked off, it reminds me of when you go to Lake Winnipesaukee, and there's the thing that says you must be this tall to ride this ride. We're barely that tall.
And the least safe person on that ride is the one that just reaches that line. And we haven't had even the discussions about the fiduciary responsibilities of the town taking on something when we're just barely able to do it and have no geography for expansion, for increased tax base, all the other kinds of things. We haven't talked about any of that. And if we, talking about organically, Dick, if we did this organically, it should begin, I think, with those kinds of discussions as a council. And that's what we didn't get to do. And so I'm not against all this coming back up again. I think it might have worked differently had it evolved differently. So that's it.
The problem I have is that it was a report that was a research report. We didn't have a preconceived idea going into it. So it was just research.
I agree.
And we didn't assign one position or the other. You're trying to assign a position to it now.
No, I'm
not.
I'm talking about the intent of the board, not the SSVC report. The SSVC report is fine and stands on its own, speaks for itself. It's good. We, as a board, decide. We are the body of standing as to what we do with that. Are we as a board pursuing this investigation further, or are we as a board not doing that? It's that simple. That has not, and it's even based on the conclusions of the report.
I tell you what, I'm not going to give you my answer today. I'll think about it for another month, and we'll identify it at another agenda meeting, but I'm not going to give you an answer today because I have to go back and look at what was said in the reports to give you that answer, because I don't see it right now.
Don't see what?
I don't see your opinion on this.
What is my opinion?
Your opinion is that you want to prevent us looking at this.
We can look at anything we want to, but are we doing it right now?
We never were trying to do that. All we were trying to do is get a report generated, and as you said, the report's been generated. We can comment it all you want to about what it means, but then that takes more citizens' involvement as to what that report means to the citizens, because ultimately we're not making that decision. It's the citizens that would make that decision through a referendum, and we're not even near that. We're still just listening to opinion.
I'm still looking at it. So I'd like to get as much information as we can to include with the SSVC, so at some point, if this community wants to do it further, they already have all the work done.
I have no objection to you pursuing it as an individual, Mayor. What my objection is that it's perceived and almost impossible to separate your personal and your public. And that's what I'm trying to get to. And I'm not picking on you and being critical, but I think we have an image problem and we got to deal with it.
I understand, but I'm asking Bill to write letters to the state's attorney. I'm asking Boyd to write to the Tennessee Department of Education, and I don't want to not be able to have that to potentially answer some of the questions and get some facts on the issues we don't have answers.
I think the appropriate way to handle that is you write the letters to those people and make those requests, and not Boyd, and then it becomes a private issue.
If they double my salary, I will look at doing that.
I'll vote for that today.
Yeah,
Well,
but see, that's
that's on the table prevent that?
No.
Sounds like it does.
No, it doesn't.
I don't think it does. If it
So I
doesn't
can
prevent it.
I can still ask Boyd and Phil.
Yeah, it
to
just is
pursue
not
it.
getting
Oh, no.
liability.
on this question, that makes me nervous. I don't like that, frankly.
Well, that's why I don't want to agree to something that wouldn't be.
But you can do it on your own.
I don't want to do that.
I mean, my words,
I don't want you to do it as a representing council.
Right, and so we should vote. That's what the board
So
does.
there is a motion, I think, an amended motion and a second. And it sounds like it's going to come up 2-2 and an abstain, so it'll be interesting.
Do we still want any more discussion?
I doubt very much that I'm going to change your mind. And
I'm just going to go on record in the discussion that I've never had any intention in pursuing this. And if that's not good enough, I just don't need to go any further than that, other than I'm going to look at this for another 30 days and see if there is that level of concern to where it has to be identified like this.
At this point, it's about the board's position as opposed to our individual positions. I mean, that's what the vote is about.
You say the board, you mean the council?
The councils, thank you, yeah, sorry, the
I'd like
council.
to call the question.
Call the question.
We ready?
Yep.
All those in favor?
Can we have it read one time in the right order, just to be clear?
Whereas the town of Signal Mountain is no longer investigating the viability of an independent school district, therefore, the resolution to change the date of the committee, to dissolve the committee upon the passage of this amended resolution.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? No. Any abstentions? Here we go. Is there anything else on the okay, for the record,
Thank you.
that was process to amend the resolution that was already passed. So we still have a resolution that says we're going to dissolve the SSVC.
Still stands.
That still stands. This action was to amend that, and there was nothing, it wasn't passed. So that original stands unless action is taken to do something else.
All right. Anything else on the SSVC? I have some. Well, I would like to consider amending that resolution to say, to open up with, whereas the committee found this viable before the rest of it. Whereas the SSVC committee found this viable.
They did.
Somebody has to.
Somebody has to say.
Oh, I'll say.
Now there's discussion. Any discussion? Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
I'll say one thing.
All right.
The Signal Mountain and Town of Walden are the only two communities that have ever had to make an investment or be asked to make an investment in a high school. That's a $10 million joint effort. That's an investment, and we need to be looking at this on a regular basis to protect our investment. No other community can say the same thing as far as them having to pony up money to actually have a high school, because there was many who didn't want us to have a high school or felt that that was an issue. So as part of this discussion, I wanted on record that we need to be looking at a regular as far as investments, we need to continue to monitor our investment. And the board right now has been given a copy of this, the school board's been given a copy of this report. I'm anxious to see how they're going to address those issues and how they consider those issues, or if they don't consider those issues that the report generated. So I'm hoping that other people will keep an eye on what's going on with the school board to address those concerns. And that's just a statement that I wanted to make.
And it's not, I know this is discussion for this, but my next issue on this was I was going to propose the town signal because this topic has been so engaging and interesting to folks, and there's so much interest. I've learned a lot, I'm sure everyone else has. We have we created an education board for the town. Not looking for viability of ISD or anything else, but just to deal with educational issues for the different schools, adult education, anything else. But we have something that represents our town and our educational issues that have a voice that can go to HCDE, can bring up ideas, can do that sort of thing. I just think this topic has been so engaging and everybody has been involved that it is one of the things that I believe is the most important thing we can give to our kids. I think the town should be more involved in working on this.
But that's my next, we're in the middle of this one, so.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that meets your concern or not.
That is partially my concern, because I think that, the school board now has, I think that the light has been shed inappropriately on the Town of Signal Mountains Council. I think we now need to be looking toward the school board to see how they address these issues. And there should be a representative of the public, many representatives of the public to engage in those kind of conversations as well. They, in our meeting we had about two weeks ago, the school board representative said that she was unaware of some of these issues. And I find that kind of concerning, because these have been going on for a number of years. And that's a concern that they were, in an effort, almost trivialized. And so for that reason, I'm looking forward to their leadership in addressing some of these issues, since we're not investigating this and never have been investigating this. We've just been asking for some research.
And you heard in my statement how absolutely amazed I was at the bureaucracy and politics of HCD that I read at the last meeting, where Dr. Johnson and I met several times and had great conversations and came to an agreement on a proposal to present to both the HCD board and our town council that would lay this to rest. All the way to the point over a month and a half where the day before he called and asked that Bo and I go out to HCD to go over that proposal. PowerPoint presentation, the whole thing. And they pulled the plug the day before. Without even a call. And I am positive that somebody felt they weren't getting credit, or the board got involved, but it was very disheartening, because we worked on some very simple, inexpensive, easy fix things for our kids up here.
And if all of these things had taken place in the public, everyone would feel...
It was going to take care of the public. That's what that whole meeting was required. We sat in the room and said,
if all this...
here's a good thing, here's a good thing. Lo and behold, they're going to look at it, but for some reason somebody wanted credit or something else, so they took off the table us calling a joint meeting and making that presentation.
Can we call the question, or have we gotten even to that point?
Call the question.
Can I have clarification?
Yeah.
I'd like to change some of the language that you used.
Please.
And I want to put in, whereas the SSVC found an independent school district to be viable, rather than this issue.
That's fine. I'm fine with that. Did I get a second?
I'll second it.
No, I already
Amy
have
already a
second.
second?
Amy's
Okay.
already second.
You called the question, so that's no more discussion. Is that what it is? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No.
No.
Is that 3-2? Or any, did you abstain, or?
No, he voted
Okay, you
for it.
voted.
He
Okay.
voted for it.
All right, on to the next issue that was in the middle of this. I would like to look at that town committee for education. It's not, has nothing to do with ISD, has nothing to do with pro or con or pro HCD, but somebody who would represent the issues that this town has, promote the issues. I'd love to get Hillary Robinson, who's director of MEF, on that, so ways that our town can work closer with the schools to support the kids, support the athletics, support the academics, support the extracurriculars, help them increase MEF funding for the basics that we're having to cover now, because we all know MEF funding is reduced significantly over the past couple of years, and we're being asked to cover more and more. Anything we can do to help the kids and promote that as a town, I think it's a great thing. I can't see anything wrong with helping out education. And I propose a 5-member committee be created that will become a regular committee of the town. Do they have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a first and a second. Comment?
Yeah, well, yes. I think we shouldn't vote on anything like this until we see a presentation based on the structure. I mean, you're presenting it right now. This is a brand new idea. It sounds very much like, it concerns me when someone says, I can't see any reason why this could be bad, and those kinds of things. That means perhaps, to me, if you hear those, I just don't think, if I can't see why it would be bad or what could be the problems with it, I haven't thought it through clearly. And it would be nice to see you present this as a presentation, and I would love it much more if it was coming from citizens who are asking for this, and if teachers were involved in it as well. So we don't go down the same road we went down before.
A teacher or two on board, especially if they live in the town.
Do the teachers want us to do this?
Well, let's find out.
Well, then, let's find out before we vote.
And I don't have a problem, I don't have a problem with that. I think that that needs to be discussed, because again, the town of Signal Mountain is in a unique position. We've made a big investment in this high school, and I think we need to look at protecting our investment.
Just, if I may, as you think about how you're gonna move forward, if you're gonna move forward, if this is gonna be a standing board or committee, it's gonna be formed by way of ordinance instead of resolution. So keep that in mind as you're formulating how you're gonna do it.
Has to go to public reading.
It has to go to multiple readings.
Just making sure we've been,
I would
until
agree.
now, we've
I'd
been
like to
dealing with
table this
resolutions.
and
Why
open it up.
don't you have that as your next topic on the?
We've already got, we're booked up for the next three months, yeah.
We can talk about it some more. I think it's a good idea, but I do think it needs to be
Yeah.
kind of talked through.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we don't have an education department, we don't have, I mean,
Right.
and I will just hit, we said, let's do the beautification committee, you know, and there are no resources there to fund it, and it takes staff time, and so it's kind of languishes there sometimes if we don't, and this has to say, if we're gonna create something, we've gotta set the stage for it and put the resources there to make it work, and we haven't done that. So anyway, but I agree, and I agree with Bob too. I think it is, we have an investment and we are entitled to hold it accountable.
Beyond well beyond the 10 million. 21 million in 10 years, that's $2 million a year average. That is a big chunk of change.
We're not entitled, though. We might be responsible, but we're not entitled.
How entitled to what?
Well,
I'm just using the words that Dick
word. I
used.
mean, yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think we're entitled.
We got what we're entitled to. We got a school built, and the rest of Hamilton County also contributed to it. And it's a fantastic school, and it's doing well.
I think due diligence is a
Yeah.
role we play.
We have a responsibility to that.
Absolutely.
It's different.
So do we make that a topic in our next?
Yeah, it's a good,
Okay,
that's
so
a
you
good.
have, but you have a motion with the first and the second, so you have to decide.
Oh, so you have to vote.
Agree to table, or
Can I agree to table?
Well, I withdraw.
where is Phil when we need him?
Okay, if you withdraw a second, then
I'll withdraw. Okay, we'll withdraw. But can we put that topic on the next agenda? Okay. Anything else on SSVC? Board liaison reports.
I've got something here, I'll have to read it.
Bob, when you came, I don't know if you came in before or after we acknowledged the letter from Larry.
Did you read that, the DRC letter?
Was he here?
He was.
I would like to follow up on those comments.
Oh, that's
That
for new
Larry
business?
McClure, you know, that
Oh,
suggesting.
okay,
that-
I mean,
Did you read this?
yeah, I glanced at it, I mean, the concern here was about signage, is that,
Yeah,
and, you
and a
know,
proliferation of unlegal signs, and I'm.
I mean, we assigned that to Chuck to identify concerns with signs and give him the latitude to address them.
But this letter is suggesting that Chuck is not working, not getting the job done, and that bothers me.
Yeah, that, and I have to take great issue with this letter in the sense that, the DRC was trying to micromanage so many aspects of general business signs as to make them almost ineffectual to market your services. And he, to my knowledge, didn't own a business up here, nor knows the difficulty in maintaining a business up here, because we're dependent on people who come from off the mountain as much as we do on the mountain to address our where we are noticeable as a business. And so those were some concerns that I had directly with him, and I think he's just trying to share his displeasure with the fact that they can't micromanage as much as they'd like to on some signage.
Can we get Chuck to do a survey? I mean,
Oh, yeah, and we can, and I'll give you a prime example of the situations that we deal with. Last night, it's the first time in a while, I've come to, for lack of a better term, downtown Signal Mountain after dark, and I noticed that there's a business that has 3 lit hearts in the window. And that's not something you're supposed to do.
We have a 2-heart limit.
Chuck doesn't work at night, and Chuck probably doesn't see them.
Yeah.
Okay, so until somebody sees it and gets the information to him, I saw those yesterday. I haven't seen Chuck. Well, I have seen Chuck. I will not misspeak. I haven't had a chance to talk to Chuck. You know, those are the kind of things that we do struggle with. Somebody has to click. Yeah, that needs to be addressed. We need to get it, and then get Chuck to address it. Am I going to tell you there's not a lag in that? Sometimes, absolutely there is. But as far as the actual approved signage and what is approved, that process I think is working well. There are times we absolutely need to do a better job of enforcing the signs that haven't come before staff and go up, and once they're identified, we need to get those addressed. And I'm not going to argue that.
The letter sounds like it has a frustration level beyond what it's saying.
Yeah,
I agree.
So I think, can you talk to Mr. McClure and find out? I mean, there seems to be more there than what's down on paper.
I think there's a whole lot between the
Yeah,
lines here.
between the lines, so
That's what.
let's find out and see if we can address it. I think that's the best way to handle it. Is that fair, Bob?
Oh, yeah.
Anything else? So wait, you're in the report. What else?
I was gonna go over the, Kyra couldn't be here today, so she sent me an email to address some of the things they've been working on. Wade Rittenberry had a meeting with the MEF and the PTA folks on the education community group happening now. They're trying to connect with those groups to facilitate the centennial information. Actually, they've actually tried to develop a curriculum about the Signal Mountain history, and they're trying to see how they can disseminate that information for the kids to learn about the history of Signal Mountain. Lee Aldhouse, which we saw her application and approved that, and John Wynn was the retiring member that she's filling the post for. The Alexian Forum and the ongoing work with them, Mayor Howley met with the group, and we all were there at a forum meeting at the Alexian Brothers last Friday to inform the residents about the centennial, and we actually had some residents who remember riding on the trolley when they were 4 years old, and one of the residents there shared that story, and there were a lot of others that had shared information and have actual pictures of some of the things that actually they've held privately that's not necessarily with our historical committee, so those things that they were sharing. And we're planning a community-wide forum at the end of February, beginning of March, to engage the community groups together, of the lifestyle community groups, as well as others in the centennial efforts. So that's about the most up-to-date.
And as Bob said, we were over there Friday evening, right? We had a little dinner in the pub over there and had a reception
At Alexian?
At Alexian in their where the theater stage is. That was fabulous. It really was just a neat deal, and people got engaged, and basically went over. Alexian really wants to be a host, kind of the main host for the centennial thing.
Cool.
Step up. So, they're also, did you talk about the headquarters over there?
I didn't specifically mention that, but you recall that they've got that whole area that they've been willing to allow us to have our some of the engagements with the community there, which is historical because it predates the incorporation of the
hotel.
town. Yeah, the hotel.
The bottom's not, one of the levels is not being used, I think, the entry level. And they've basically told Patrick and Kyra and Bob and I that, you know, hey, if you want a base or Centennial out of here, just kind of, so you have an office.
That's great.
What a better place to do it than, I mean, that, talk about the most historic building in town.
Agree.
So, we just had a good meeting.
It gets you, want to remember those trolleys that came up in Memphis that you wanted to buy?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Get a trolley that went right up to the old hotel?
Yeah.
That'd be
The
cool.
part that was the biggest discussion, because we opened up some other discussions, you know, basically questions of what we're working on. You know, is the tracks. The tracks came up in the road out there. You had a couple that were like, I ain't gonna clear those tracks, I've ruined my tire on my bike. And a couple saying, you can't get rid of the tracks. And when is it gonna get done?
We're never going to get rid of the tracks because we're not going to resurface the dang road.
One piece of information that I've been misinformed about was that the tracks terminated at the Alexian Brothers. And that's not true. It went all the way down, all the way to Texas, down to Timberlinks. It cut across through Hidden Brook. It hit a few strip mines and then went back up towards James Boulevard, according to this historian, and that they actually took a little bit of some coal on the tracks, not through the trolley, but through a car system. And so I'm just wondering, is there someone who actually has
a map of that?
A map of
Would that be
that?
cool?
We've seen an old plat book that does show that it comes around Texas and then goes up and hits Timberlinks, but it does show that it terminates on Timberlinks, not going around the other way, but I can see it. And then we're gonna see if they can get us copies of that.
Yeah, I mean, that, again, this is just someone's, you know, I didn't know it even went down Texas, so that was interesting to find that out, and that it,
WWTA told me that was the real reason for the ride.
That's what?
I said WWTA told me that was the real reason for the ride out there.
That's the old trolley track.
That's not us. But hey, the other thing we learned, which I thought was really neat, is the brothers have a whole archive over there. The brothers are in their own building, but they're gonna let the folks in the Centennial Committee go in and see, and they have like the old flood phone deal and, you know, just some old stuff that's been there forever, and some historical pictures and things, which will help out. Anything else, DRC?
there hasn't been a meeting yet on that, and I don't have any other board reports.
Yeah.
Just to reiterate the issue of the MACC board, I don't have a report on the MACC board. But if we do go forward with the public-private partnership, I would question whether or not we actually need a town board anymore. It would be some sort of different arrangement. So anyway, just put that out there as a bug in your ear.
We did pretty much rec, just knowing that the only thing that we didn't talk about in rec, which I was really excited about, and Jared kind of alluded to, the way we could reconfigure the Timberlinks baseball field. They actually also have looked at the town hall fields, and it has been determined that can become a quadplex. So we could move the 5 pitch-roll field basically where it needs to be with the other fields, which will really change the.
There's not room for 2 more fields.
That's something we need to look at in regards to where the batting cages.
Well, and that's why I brought it up before they put in the
So they're going into
back.
that.
It's my understanding, I'm talking to Mark, that won't affect what they've looked at, because he was part of that process. Where they're putting the batting cages.
Because I'm not aware of that discussion, so we'll make sure that we don't get too far down one path.
We're going
I
after,
agree, that was my question.
we're going after a very large rec grant, is my understanding. Sam, are you here?
Yeah. It was
Are we, is that,
so
can you clue us in on that? We had to get all our, had to write requests,
Right.
our records on that.
the grant we plan to pursue is to refurbish Marion and Driver Fields, over behind the country club. They're some of the oldest that we have. I don't know if they've ever been actually refurbished and rebuilt. So we're gonna look at doing that, look at lighting. We're gonna look at, putting in a new restroom facility similar to what we have here. So the old one can be repurposed for storage and field house. Pretty much we're gonna look at a project that would completely update and renew those fields and associated facilities, and then we'll look at an associated cost, and try to figure out how much we can bite off in terms of applying for a grant, which I think was just a 50%, but still.
And the left field wall will be 300 feet, right?
In the process, moving that left field fence would be more cost effective because it'll be done in conjunction with.
That's all we did.
We get additional money if we replicate.
Bill Gallagher, when you need him.
And when I told Bill what we were doing, he immediately said he took back all the swear words. So, he's on board with holding off for a while till we see if we can get this grant. We have done RFQs for engineers for the project, and we'll be looking at those next week. And initially, we'll just be getting someone to do an initial design and cost estimates, and then if that is awarded, they'll do the actual engineering associated with it. So it'll be a relatively, and what we're asking is that they'll commit to do that without compensation until we see if we've got the grant. And if we don't get the grant, we'll just compensate them for the minimal hours on the front end that they did. So we're moving forward on that. Yeah.
No, just, when we talked about the SSVC, and I just did want to say one comment, to the council. My frustration, or anything that you can be picking up on today, has been that we've gone through this entire process. I just want to go on record saying, and we've gotten nothing for our kids. The whole idea was to improve education. I honestly don't care if we leave or stay, truly. Whichever path leads to improving education, I'm not saying we're good enough, adding to what we're doing, either if that looks like taking the pressure off MEF, then we've done good, and we have had such opposition that we have effectively gotten nothing. And that's where my sadness is in this whole process. A whole year, and we got a citizen to look at the new exit, which is a danger at this middle high school, and no one is looking at it. And we got a advisory committee to be formed. That's nothing. We don't have any busing. We've got a promise to look into start. All these things have been laid out for a year, and we've not done anything. And now we have no negotiating power. So that's my frustration. And that's what I didn't say before. And I just feel like for the people who have contacted me as their elected official and wanted us to continue investigating this and continue the SSVC, I feel like we've let them down. And those are the people with kids in the school. That's all I want to say.
Well, I guess the only response is things move awful slow in government, and perhaps the advisory committee will have some accountability in the sense that they'll get some of these things answered now that they've been handed the report. And so I'm hopeful that, as you suggested, ultimately we're looking for the embetterment for our kids for education, and hopefully these steps that certainly you've invested a lot of time in as will collectively make those things happen. That's the hope I have. Anyway.
Right, so we have gone through this, and now we're going to open door. So, congratulations.
I have one other thing. I'm sorry. I forgot. WWTA. I have asked Scott McDonald, who is a consulting engineer to that organization, to make a report to us as council on the progress of the upgrading and maintaining of the Signal Mountain sewer system to include the plant at the bottom of the mountain, and what the status is and what the timetable is. And I think we need to know that as a council, but he is willing also to have a public meeting if that's what you would like to do. And I think it would be useful information because it does have an impact on the moratorium. And was it you that said government moves slow? It was you that said government moves slow. It will help explain why we still live under the moratorium and will likely live under the moratorium for quite some time. So, Scott McDonald, very, very sharp guy, and we're on the cusp of a fairly major project up here finally to rehab the main system, which is really the main contributor to the what they call the I&I, the inflow, groundwater inflow into the system that screws up the plant at the bottom of the mountain. Lots of money involved, lots of work, but ultimately it will get us where we need to be. And I thought we'd get him up here maybe in February, maybe March, but look for that. Okay.
Any other board?
I want to add one awkward thing to the WWTA thing.
Why awkward?
Well, you'll see in a moment. At the Mountain Stewards meeting at the library last week, several people, we were talking about this whole system, and Mark Harrison spoke for a moment. And I thought it was interesting that he said, if he could get one message across quickly to everyone on Signal Mountain, it's that disposable wipes are not disposable. He said that's the most important message that needs to go out right now.
And Mark is the executive director.
He's executive director, yeah. So.
Paper towel too. You're not supposed to put paper towel.
I don't know.
But there is a lot of work ahead of WWTA. It's going to impact citizens in the pocketbook. So we'll see where it goes. So I thought we'd just sort of ease into that a little bit.
Any other? All right, I had a Parks Board meeting, nothing major coming out of that, I'm not aware. And, but I did attend this past Saturday, dedication of the new library sign to Suji, Dick's Lake Life, and it was a very, very, very nice ceremony, and to a very special lady, a true friend, and I thought the world of Sue, and I just wanted to mention that. But it's
appreciate it. It was a great day. It was a great day. And where she worked, Berkshire Hathaway was primarily responsible for coordinating all that, and plus lots of people gave money over the years. And the sign, if you haven't seen the sign, notice the sign. It's spectacular.
And there's a plaque in the back. Yeah. It's a beautiful new sign. There's a plaque in the back with Sue's name. And I suggest you go in there and take a look at it. It was very nice. And
thank you, Chris.
Could have been a nicer lady. All right, board reports are done. Manager's report. Nothing?
Another thing. I really do just have a few things, and two are redundant. The James Boulevard project, we mentioned, I lost track of which one actually mentioned this about, so I'll repeat them both. All of that work has been completed and everything's back in the state's hands. And so hopefully we're waiting for approval. Once again, we've done everything we can do. And the same thing with MACC, that project, all the questions, concerns, corrections have been addressed and everything's back with them.
We're not waiting on this, right? I mean, that's a separate meeting at the MACC. We're not waiting on the...
No. This is, everything's still moving forward. We've committed to that project and it's moving forward as quickly as we can make it.
But I think it's, at the risk of interrupting, but I think it's important. When we approved $300,000 for that project, that was a year ago. And so you know what I'm suggesting. When we find out what the current costs are going to be, don't expect it to be $300,000. So we'll just have to see what the story is. That's my expectation, and I think it's realistic.
And we have fully wrapped up the water projects. Public Works is wrapped up. We have a couple of things. We literally have like $5,000 in retainage left, is how small the things are. So we're pretty much wrapped up there. The fire station, very, very, very pleased with the contractor on that job so far. We're regularly getting updates. Had a meeting yesterday. There was significant additional site work associated with that, with the rock and everything. Hold on, Mayor.
This is a glass half full story.
It ain't half anything. We're gonna build it.
All I heard was a chink.
No, there was a lot more rock work and all that. That has been more than offset by the savings we're realizing from securing the easement and all that for the sanitary septic system and not having to connect to Wild Ridge and all that. So even with that significant increase, we've more than offset that by savings that we've been able to find by doing what we've done and continue to identify some other savings that we haven't worked on. So right now everything's going very, very well with that project. If you drive by, there's actually a wall coming up out of the ground.
Saw it the other night.
Is that it? That's it. Questions for the town manager on the report or anything else? All right. Next topic, tentative agenda, February 12th.
At present, the only thing that we have is the resolution previously voted on relative to the SSVC and the board appointments that have been nominated, and we will have some additional, and I will try to segregate those so that we know which ones need further discussion and which ones have already been done. That's what I have at this point.
Celebrate my birthday.
Happy birthday.
That'd be my birthday.
Happy birthday. Anything else for the agenda? All right.
Once this material, the MACC, let's go back to the MACC. Once the data that we're expecting to receive back, the approvals, I guess, those will be biddable documents ready to go. There's nothing standing in the way, approval-wise, that is going to, so we can go ahead and bid the project, or not?
Correct.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Once we get the approvals back, the engineering and everything's done, so we'll be able to get the bid packets put together and
get going on that, and once we deal with the financials part of it. Okay.
And we will likely, to the degree possible, segment that bid out so that if it does come down to looking at what can or can't be funded, or if additional funds will be dedicated, we'll have that latitude.
Okay.
And figure together. So we'll try to structure it so that we.
And the wall is the last thing we would build with the expectation that we're going to have funds provided to sprinkle the rest of it.
I think that would likely be the case. You know, as we discussed, the last thing we want to do is change this project. But if we anticipate another project that would eliminate the need for the wall, then it would make sense that the wall might be the last thing we start working on.
Yeah, very good. Okay.
I had to burn this, go back to that topic, but with that said, does it make more sense instead of giving them operational money that would be basically flexible for them to use however they want, to say, hey, as part of that, we'll do the utilities and whatever else, but if it costs $75,000 to do the sprinkler in the back, and that's your intention, we put it towards that so we can clearly define where it goes, as opposed to.
I think the best scenario would be to provide operational funds, but dictate how those can be used, so it's not, I think that's the safest position, because then we can in effect guarantee operational costs recovered.
Okay. And the MACC continues to function.
Additional capital costs may be cleaner for us. All right. Anything else to come in? Other business. Ladies first.
You have a forum for the planning commission, or you had some kind of, about land use, or was that coming up?
Now, coming up, so at the next Signal Mountain Community Forum, there's three, well, so Dick's involved in this as well. One of the things that the Planning Commission has been doing for the past, well, almost a year.
Almost a year, yeah.
Is our land use plan needs to be updated. So we've been going through every section of it and finding out what's outdated and that kind of thing. And it's a long process. So the next step is to, I guess we're coming up on our public hearings on that. So the land use plan is something that I think maybe in general, citizens don't necessarily, some don't even know it exists and how important it is and what its purpose is and all that. And so at the forum, we're just going to look at that. Not that it matters for the meeting, but we've all gone through and made corrections in it, and I tend to read things out loud when I do that, and so I read the entire thing out loud and recorded it and made that available online. So if anyone wants to listen to the land use plan, because it's a relatively long and boring document to read, you can be bored by hearing somebody instead. But we're looking for changes and for public input, basically. So does that answer your question? Mm-hmm. I mean, and also Jennifer at that meeting is going to do the public hearing that she needs to do, not a public hearing, a public presentation that's part of the grant for the, does that one have to do with the Marion and Driver fields, or does that one have to do with just part of one of the grants she's applying for? She just has to make a public presentation somewhere.
There will be a presentation to the planning commission at one point, as well as discuss.
Yes.
Yeah. They're also holding, that was what I was confused about, they're holding public input meetings.
And that.
Now, and they'll do a presentation to the planning commission about
yes.
the grant meetings.
Thursday.
Yes. Yeah.
Public forum is on what?
Well, that hasn't been scheduled yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The public forum has not been scheduled. The Signal Mountain, that's a different thing. That's not an official public forum.
Planning commission meeting.
And that is the
Signal Mountain
community forum. It's the first Monday of every month. So I guess it's a week from
1/8.
1/8 would be the first one, yeah.
The first is Thursday.
Well, hold on, I'll look and see. It is the 5th.
5th.
Yeah.
1-5, and same place, which is the MACC.
Yeah, in the cafeteria.
Okay. And then the other.
Hasn't been scheduled yet.
No, we don't know.
Right.
Planning commission, can you guys give us an update? Sorry, in the middle of your thing, but we didn't talk about where they are. I know there's some sort of survey going around or something.
I don't know anything about that, by the way.
So it's not coming from the planning commission?
No, it's not.
Is that anything interesting in front of the planning commission?
The only thing that I know that I saw on the agenda is the land that belonged to Frank Atkins.
Yeah.
Okay. There's going to be a proposal there to rezone that to office and put a small office building there rather than a residence. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how they respond to that. But there's nothing else really that I'm aware of.
Yeah, the planner has recommended it, but it's public and the discussion hasn't taken place yet. So that's coming up.
And we haven't heard anything back from the prior proposal on the big box store. Okay. We don't know where they are on that. If they're anywhere.
Who was other business that was going? Dick, other business? Okay. I have a couple things. Got this going, dedication of the sign for Sue. I met a new friend, and it's always nice to have new friends, but I met Frank Hill, and for those of you who don't know Frank Hill, he lives on the mountain. He's lived out here, raised the family up here, 4 wonderful kids. He's 86 years old. He and his wife live over on Ground Point Road East. Frank does something that is so unique and so special and so amazing that I had no idea that we had that level of, you know, our neighbors have talents and that they're at that level and living in our community. Frank Hill is the one who created by hand from a single piece of wood the 4 different boat models, the big boat models that are at the library. There are 5 of them there, 1 upstairs, I believe 4 downstairs. He has created, not from a kid again, from a single piece of wood, through his imagination, over 20 to 30 of these, and they take anywhere from 1 to 5 years to complete. And the detail is absolutely fascinating. And for somebody I can't change a light bulb, for God's sakes, but for somebody to be able to do what he does and that talent and take that time and donate. He's never accepted money for any of them, but he donates. He's at UTC's got 2 or 3, and we have a couple, and museums have. I don't necessarily want to bring up the actual value of these things because I think it'll make our library a target, but here is a man that lives in our midst that I would like to find a way, if we can't, recognize him. Because the amount of generosity, what he gave to just the library alone, and what his wife does as she goes out and still visits people who are interned in their home, I'd like to honor he and his wife while they're still here, so they can enjoy it. So I don't know if it's as simple as naming a Frank Hill and Betty Sue Day. I don't know, but I think that would absolutely make his day. And this guy is salt of the earth, one of the nicest, most amazing guys. I went over to his house this week, spent an hour with him. He teaches kids chess. I mean, the guy's he fought in the Korean War.
He's an engineer, by the way.
He
and has taken every class, every humanities class at UTC without a degree. He's audited it, but he's taken every class available. And
the guy is incredible. And absolutely, and I would just, as a citizen with those special gifts and who has been so generous to our library, I would like to honor him, hopefully at the next meeting, and make it Frank and Betty Sue Hill and thank them for their participation and involvement in our community.
Make a motion.
Second?
Yeah.
Any discussion?
I can't imagine any 2 people more worthy. And there are others out there too. I think that's
Oh, there
also
are.
a message.
I think we need to recognize those folks who do that in this sort of way to encourage continued volunteerism in our town. We have a first and a second. Is there any conversation, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Betty Sue was very happy to get some of those chips out of her living room.
Their house is amazing.
And he still has a bunch of them.
If you haven't seen it, you gotta go to the library and look at the detail and realize that these things are made from 1 piece of wood. And not from kids. It will absolutely blow your mind. And he is the sweetest little guy. Okay, so I'll stop going off on that. Just because it's near and dear to my heart, our basketball teams, girls varsity played at Howard last night and won, and our boys team played at Howard last night and won. And then we have a game this evening here at home against Central. Girls varsity, which is number 1 in the district right now, starts at 6 p.m. and the boys varsity, which I help coach, start at 7:30 this evening. So if you want to see an exciting, they're really getting good, it's getting exciting, come out and watch the boys and girls play, please. The Gray Wagner, just FYI for the council, when we approved, did we change the date officially
To the 27th.
to the 27th? Okay, I'll be presenting that to her on Saturday, just so everybody knows, and that's going to be Gray Wagner Day. Water RFP, can you give us an update?
Good question.
We're in the process. It has been released, and we've had questions and have answered questions, and it is proceeding.
Has there been any interest expressed beyond Walton Ridge and your Tennessee American? Any other contact from you? Do you not want to answer that? No. Okay. All right.
We're trying to keep the process as,
Have you named the folks to the board who's going to review this, or do you not want to talk about that either?
we have staff that are on there, and we have two people that we're, probably gonna have on the board. I have yet to meet with one of them, so.
We're going to put some public.
We have two people, two citizens that will be assisting with that.
Am I supposed to be on that or not?
No,
Anybody on the council on that?
no. But it will be reviewed, and then ultimately it will be coming to the full council.
The
And
question,
again,
of public versus private that was raised at last council meeting, what,
I don't have a final answer on that, in terms of whether the evaluation committee's meetings will have to be public or not.
I would imagine it would, wouldn't it?
I don't think so. They're not making a determination or really making a recommendation. They're evaluating the proposals.
What is the drawback to making them public?
The nature of the proposals and discussion of the details.
Negotiation. I mean, my preference is if we can, we make it public, but if there's,
well, if you have two competing
yeah.
entities, I mean, you can't divulge.
All right,
what the other-
before we are asked to make a decision, everything will be released so people can study it beforehand. Okay.
And there will be opportunity for public input meetings. We've already adjusted the schedule, as I said before. We put together a timeline that we had to have a starting point. We've already seen that we need to adjust that, and if we need to do it further for additional public input, we can do that. So it's, council can seek as much public input and provide as many opportunities as you wish.
When do they do?
Now it is the February 14th.
And the schedule now for something to come to council would be when? As it's written now.
I don't have that right in front of me.
Thank you. Last thing is, the question was never answered. Do we need to have meetings with the public to allow them to address the SSVC report? We don't feel there's a need, or wait till we get somebody either yelling yes or no, or, well, I'm fine either way. I just don't want to, if there is an expectation out there, I don't want to. My guess is that especially the anti-crowd are like, oh, just put it to bed, we don't want to talk about it anymore, which is fine. But if we said we were going to promise, and I'm not promoting that, but it would have to be a public meeting, in my opinion.
Why don't we wait till the next council meeting, see how many citizens?
Yeah, I think that's,
That's fair.
I don't have a sense, Frank.
That's all I have, so I'll take a motion.
Well, wait.
Go ahead.
If we are continuing to explore, then yes, I think we should have public meetings. If we are not, then no. You ask, I mean, so that's,
No, that's fair.
if we are continuing to explore, yes. If we're not, no.
But that's, right, I understand, and my intention is not to prolong it. But we made a promise to the folks. I have a sense that the folks really don't care. They don't want it, as long as we.
That's my sense, but I'm not sure that I believe me.
You know what, you've been promising we could talk about it for 6 months or whatever, and you do that. If they really don't care, I don't want to have meetings, right, you know. But I also want to have meetings if there is an expectation out there. So I think, as somebody
Let's
said.
see if we get questions. Let's see if we get questions.
Let's wait till we hear.
Yeah.
I'm fine either way.
Okay.
All right?
I am.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you all.